are Newsroom. Hello and welcome once again from Johannesburg here in South Africa. My name, of course, Evan Jansen. This show, as always, is live broadcast from our studios right here in Auckland Park. Don't forget, between 9 and 12, we're streaming live on YouTube, so you can watch us there. You can also watch us back a little bit later in the day on demand on that very same channel. Our busy News Monday ahead of us. But before we get into it, let's cross to Anindo Mal, who's got a social media update for us.
Yes, good morning, Eben. Well, the attention has shifted from striking students this morning on social media to grade 12 sitting down to writing their final exams today. Then it's also been a year since Bafana captain Senzo Meyiwa was killed, and we'll take a look at Twitter's reaction to that.
Thank you very much, Anine. Yes, we've also got an interview with Sam Meyiwa, and then we ask you our question of the day. Of course, our question of the day today deals with relaxed visa regulations in South Africa. There's the question: how do you view the amendments to South Africa's visa regulations? Send us your tweets on that. But before we go into that, let's get a news update on this Monday morning with Elvis Presley.
Thank you, Eben, and let's take a look at all your headlines. Student protests are keeping many campuses around the country closed despite last week's government announcement that there will be no hike in fees next year. Matric students currently underway with over 560,000 grade 12 learners writing English Paper 1. Vote tallying is underway in Tanzania. That's hours after yesterday's general elections, although voting was delayed until today at some polling stations due to a shortage of voting materials. Those are all your headlines for today. But first, before we go any further, let's find out from Kendall Makamate what happened over the weekend in your sports news. A very good morning, Kendall.
Good morning, Elvis. Thank you very much, and a very good morning to you at home as well. This is what we've got in store for you in the sports today. The Proteas put up an unassailable 438 runs to win their first ever ODI series in India. They crushed the hosts by stunning 214 runs. And Australia to lock horns with New Zealand in the Rugby World Cup final this coming Saturday.
How much better has Lewis been this year than last year?
Lewis Hamilton wraps up his third championship title with a win in Austin. And it's derbies all round for the Telkom knockout semi-final. Kaizer Chiefs against Orlando Pirates, and Mamelodi Sundowns host SuperSport United. And that, in a nutshell, is what we've got for you in sports at 10:20. Make sure you stick around for that. Back to you, Elvis.
Thank you, Kendall. Let's now take a look at your top story this hour. The University of the Witwatersrand's Vice-Chancellor, Adam Habib, has expressed his disappointment after students decided to continue with their fees must fall protest. Students now want assurances regarding free tertiary education, among a range of other demands. Now, this comes after government last week granted their demand for next year's fee hikes to be scrapped. Habib says a special meeting of the Wits Senate will be held today to discuss the protest and the resumption of the academic program. Meanwhile, Wits University spokesperson Sharona Patel says outstanding student demands such as outsourcing and lease agreements of residents will also be addressed at a special meeting of the Senate today. Now, for the latest on the Wits student protest, let's now cross live to our reporter Makaketla Mohlabe, who is at the campus. Makaketla, very good morning to you and welcome. Can you paint us a picture of the scene right now at Wits as we speak?
Very good morning to you, Elvis. Well, what I can tell you is that at this point in time, the students seem to be willing to actually go forth with studies and exams. We are, of course, expecting to find out what exactly would this exam start. I spoke to one of the students earlier on this morning, and she told me that she feels that this protest should stop so that they can just get a chance to actually finish their exams, and they will worry about everything after the exams. And over and above that, we spoke to the VETS management just a couple of minutes ago. Of course, as you said, they will be holding a meeting in about 3 hours or so to actually decide where to from here. And despite the 0% increase announcement on Friday, some students are happy that, of course, we got this victory, but it's not over yet. We want free education for all, and that's what I heard over the weekend from the SRC leaders, who said that this protest is most likely to continue. So now it remains to be seen what exactly is going to happen today.
Now, that free education or free tertiary education that the students want, do they think that this is a realistic demand?
Well, for them, they believe that government has got all money that it in the coffers to actually help every learner here to actually continue with their studies without paying. So I also saw on their social media saying that fees have not fallen really. So that's a clear indication that this protest may actually continue. So it just, of course, as I said, it remains to be seen what exactly is going to happen today after this meeting, because I understand that after the Senate held the meeting, they will actually consult with the student leaders to see a way forward into this.
Is there a sense, Makgetla, that you get from the students that this is going to be an ongoing protest until all their demands are met?
Well, definitely the same scenes we saw, a couple of weeks ago or a few days ago. When I arrived this morning in the Senate House, there are still some students who, slept on the ground there, on the ground floor of Senate House, just to show that there might be something that we are expecting today. And exactly the scenes that we saw last week, every time before the protests erupted, you'd find students sleeping on the grounds of the Senate Hall or Senate House. So there's definitely a clear indication that we are likely to see the protest going on today.
Thank you. That's our reporter, Makgetla Moshlabe. He'll keep us updated as to what's happening at WITS, coming to us live from WITS University this morning. Now, over 560,000 grade 12 learners across the country are currently writing English Paper 1. They will be examined in English Home Language, English First Additional Language and English Second Additional Language. Over 800,000 part-time and full-time candidates have registered for this year's matric exams. Government says it has put measures in place to ensure that cheating, which marred last year's matric exams, does not happen again. Several thousand learners began their practical exams last week. The last paper will be written on the 30th of November. Meanwhile, the South African Depression and Anxiety Group has urged parents to create a conducive studying environment for their children during exam times. Now, for the latest on the matric writing exams, we cross to SABC's reporter Griselda Lewis, who is at the Wendywood High School, to find out what she has for us. A very good morning to you, Griselda.
Well, a very good morning to you, Elvis.
What can we expect today? And I see you do have a guest there with you as well this morning.
Well, that's right, Elvis. It's all systems go here at the Wendywood High School. 128 grade 12s have just begun writing their English first paper. And I can tell you, many have expressed nervousness, but are certainly hopeful given all the preparation that they've made over the past couple of months. We've already spoken to the principal at the school, who says they've put all the measures in place to ensure that they achieve a great matric pass rate at the end of it all. Last year, Wendywood High School had achieved 95%. They were hoping for 100% this year. But to join me now and speak a bit more nationally about what's happening around the country at the moment is Elijah Mhlanga, who is the spokesperson for the National Department of Basic Education. Elijah, thank you very much for your time this morning. It's all systems go here at Wendywood. We've seen this morning, but a more national picture. Any problems? thus far?
Not yet. We haven't received any reports that are indicating that there could be challenges anywhere else in the country. We are hoping that the picture that we are seeing here at Windwood High is exactly the same as in all other provinces and as well as in all of our 6,797 examination centers. We're expecting a very quiet environment everywhere with learners focusing on the examinations. And we haven't even received reports of any community protests that could disrupt the examinations. Because we work very closely with the police and they've told us that everything is fine so far.
All right. Look, last year we saw the examination marred by cheating and other challenges. What measures has the department put in place to ensure that the hurdles that we had last year, we don't see them happen again this year?
Well, we've done several things. The first one is to take over the administration of examinations in those schools that were involved in the group copying. That's the first thing. The second thing is that we've increased the number of people who will be doing the monitoring in schools on the ground, especially in those schools where we suspected some kind of cheating had taken place. But we are working very close as well with Umalus, who also have committed to sending their own monitors to make sure that this time around we closely monitor the examinations to ensure that if there's any cheating. So we've done a number of things, but we've also categorized the schools in terms of high risk, medium risk, and low risk. Where there's high risk, we'll have resident monitors sitting at those schools for the duration of the examinations. In medium risk, there will be regular visits. But at low risk will allow them to proceed with the administration of the exams, but will do regular visits as well as and when it becomes necessary to ensure that everyone is still complying.
It would be very interesting to know to establish where.
Well, we're focusing particularly on the two as well as the Eastern Cape, but also some schools there where some cheating took place. In fact, it was one school, and in other provinces as well, because this heightened our security systems to make sure that wherever it could possibly take place this year, we deal with it and make sure that.
In terms of the pass rate, at about 60%. What's still one of the provinces that is performing quite badly. What interventions have you put in place as the department to ensure that there is some kind of improvement in the Eastern Cape?
In fact, when you look at the improvement rate of the Eastern Cape, they are doing better than most provinces. They are consistent. They are still in the 60s, yes, but when you look at the pass rate and the quality of the passes coming from the various districts of the Eastern Cape, we are seeing some positive results coming from there, and that's really encouraging for us. It means that the interventions that we are supporting are beginning to yield positive results, and we visit the Eastern Cape more than other provinces simply because we understand that there are bigger challenges there than elsewhere in terms of the happening there, the protests about teacher shortages and teacher non-payment and some infrastructure issues as well. But when you look at what inside the classroom, there are some great things that are happening, but we are solving all the issues. We are working consistently there, and even the portfolio committee has been there as well to look at the progress that we are making in terms of ensuring that Eastern Cape sees some stability.
The quality of these papers is what has been of concern, in that the quality has got to ensure that once you see these matriculants who make it through move to the university phase, the quality or once they get there, they're able to compete and then compete again in the job market at a later stage. How important was this for you as the department to ensure that the quality is of the highest standard?
We work very hard to ensure that the quality remains very high, and we've done two things. The first one is to make sure that we change the curriculum, especially at grade 12. Remember, 2014 was the first time that the grade 12 wrote the examinations in the CAPS curriculum. So this is the second year. And with that came the pass requirements for grade 12. So that is in place. But secondly, we also make sure that the paper that is set for them, for grade 12 candidates, is of high standard. That's why it's set in advance, and it gets moderated right through the year to make sure that what they finally face at exam center is of high quality, but also benchmark it against other papers from around the world. We're using certain agencies and certain universities that help us to quality assure to make sure that it's of a high standard. But we also get our teachers to sit and write the paper so that we're able to gauge the standard of the paper, because the cognitive demand has improved, has increased, and we want our children to rise to that challenge. We have told them that passing grade 12 now, it's going to be very difficult for you, but it doesn't start at grade 12, it started at grade 7, 8, and 9. So if you can make it through at that level, then you are set to pass grade 12. So we've done a lot of things to improve the quality of our education, starting with the examinations and assessment itself.
Well, that's where we got to leave it. We apologize for that bad quality in the sound. That was Griselda Lewis. That's at Wendywood High School, there where the examination is going to be written, with the department spokesperson, basic education spokesperson, Elijah Mashlangu. Now, the vote tallying is underway in Tanzania. That's hours after yesterday's general elections, although voting was delayed until today at some polling stations due to a shortage of voting materials. Voters in the East African nation are electing a president, as well as parliamentary and local government representatives. Results from the various polling centres have started trickling in to the National Tally Centre, but it is too early to tell who among the two main candidates is in the lead. Early last night, the opposition party Chadema said that police had raided its tally centre in Dar es Salaam and arrested its representatives. Police did not respond to media queries on the arrest. In most polling centres, the opposition and the ruling party CCM have agents who are observing the ongoing vote counting process. The National Election Commission says the first presidential results will be announced mid-afternoon today, and that the winner in the presidential elections will be known by Thursday. Now, we also examine another leading presidential candidate in Tanzania. Edward Lowassa is leading the country's opposition presidential bid. The 62-year-old drew thousands of people in the cities during pre-election rallies.
Edward Lowassa served as the country's prime minister for 2 years. He resigned in 2008 over corruption allegations. He denied the charges against him. He is no stranger to the ruling Chama cha Mapinduzi. The 61-year-old was with CCM but defected after the party nominated Dr. John Magufuli as its presidential candidate.
Edward Lowassa has been a very long term member of CCM. He served almost all his life. He's had a background of the civil service at some point. Then he moved into his political career as a member of parliament. And then he was a cabinet member responsible for water. And then he became prime minister in 2005, of which his position lasted for about 2-3 years. And then had to resign because of the corruption scandal on energy power generation.
Lowassa is now a member of Chadema party, but he will be running under a coalition of 4 political parties whose acronym is UKAWA. Lowassa is popular with the people, especially the youth, as a candidate who can remove Tanzania from the long-ruling CCM. His nomination was endorsed by 1.5 million people. He has a large following on social media sites.
He brings in the CCM software to the opposition. So he brings in the how to do things from CCM to the opposition.
He will be betting on his experience to convince the people to give him the vote. Sarah Kimani, SABC News, Tanzania.
Leaders from Central European countries and the southeastern Balkan states have agreed on a 17-point plan to tackle the migrant crisis. It includes providing food and shelter for 100,000 people along the Balkans route, half of them in Greece. Countries also pledged to increase border controls and improve cooperation. The leaders also agreed that the EU border agency Frontex would step up activity on the Greek-Macedonian border to ensure people trying to cross would be registered. The plan also says that efforts to facilitate return of the migrants not in need for international protection will be stepped up. More than 680,000 migrants and refugees have crossed to Europe by sea so far this year. According to the International Organization for Migration, they were fleeing war and poverty in the Middle East, Africa and Asia. And that's your news for now. It's now over to Eben for more in-depth reviews and interviews.
Yeah, thank you very much, Elvis, for that comprehensive news update here on a Monday morning. Now, today marks exactly a year since Bafana and Orlando Pirates captain Senzo Meyiwa passed away. Meyiwa was shot and killed while visiting his girlfriend Kelly Kumala at a mother's house in Fort Larissa on Gauteng's East Rand. To this day, no one has been arrested for this murder. Now, our very own news reporter down in KwaZulu-Natal, Mbuzo Mkhize, spoke to Senzo's father, Sam, to find out how the family are holding up.
The family is hurt and we don't understand what is going on. When my son was killed, there were people in the house, but no one wants to speak. Even the police have gone quiet. They no longer update me on what is happening with the case. The person who killed Senzo is out there carrying on with his life as if nothing happened.
Do you know why the police have decided not to update you?
Police say I'm jeopardizing the case when I speak to the media. Why must I keep quiet? I want the killer to be arrested. It hurts me that the police are no longer updating us on the case and have decided to outcast me. I pray that the police do their job so we can find peace. All we want is the truth.
SABC News tried to get the South African Police Service to comment on their leads, but they have sent us from pillar to post. But for Sam Meyiwa and his family, their hope is to see Senzo's killer behind bars, and only then they will make peace with his untimely death.
Of course, today, thousands of matriculants will sit for their final exams. Government says plans are in place to ensure that last year's mass cheating scandal doesn't happen again. As you heard a little bit earlier in that report, now students will write the English first paper today in exams that will run until the 30th of November. That's just over a month from now. Let's take a look at some of the comments that have been coming in. Of course, Nesta talks about good luck to grade 12 learners. Just do your best, talking about Matric 2015. Leibrand says many have realized the importance of Matric certificates afterwards. Make sure it's decorated with good symbols because it's for life, talking about Matric 2015. Good luck to all the matriculants. Don't let the nerves get to you. God is always on your side. Then Gavin Gadavers talks about good luck to the 801,688 learners who begin their National Senior Certificate exams today. Those are some of the views coming in with regards to Matric exams that get underway. Nervous times for learners here in and around South Africa. Neen Dormal is standing by to tell us what the conversation is like on social media right now.
Well, yeah, then the conversation definitely about the Matrics this morning. We've got that Matric 2015 hashtag trending in the #1 topic throughout the morning. Well wishes from all around. We just saw some of those comments come in, wishing those Matrics well. They're sitting down to write their English #1 paper today. We know they've already started actually at 9 o'clock. So we'll keep track of that story this morning on social media. Maybe after those Matrics have finished writing, we'll see how that paper went for them. But then also, Eben, interesting times for us. In 2015, the way we study isn't necessarily the way you or even I have studied. And we have some interesting apps these days that could help Matrics with preparing for their final exams. That right there on your screen is an app called Flip It. Now, Flip It gives bite-sized chunks of what Matrics can be expecting in their final exams. They can log on to the Google Play Store, download this app for free, and they can get 14 subjects that they can prepare for their final exams. So definitely times have changed for these Matrics. And we have some other apps as well. The Via Africa app is another app that Matrics can download. Maybe a note for the parents, and also maybe a note for striking students as they prepare to head into their exams, and we know they're busy striking. But then, of course, Eben, the big story this morning, Senzo Meyiwa, there has been a lot of reaction on Twitter this morning. It's a year since he's been killed, and we've got some of those tweets to look at this morning. Well, there we can see some of those tweets coming in. I will never forget Senzo Meyiwa's last game for Orlando Pirates at a Range Orlando Stadium as we beat AX Cape Town. This tweet from Talang says, "We still miss you, Orlando Pirates." Hashtag Senzo Meyiwa. That's what's been trending this morning in reaction to the one-year death. Then, my captain, my keeper, your soul, rest in peace. If you can fight beyond the grave, do it, because the police keep failing you. Definitely a lot of reaction in terms of the news that there haven't been any arrests for Senzo's death. And then Lady Gugu says, "I first read about his death on Twitter. I hoped it was one of those fake Twitter deaths. Hashtag Senzo Meyiwa." And one more tweet coming in there saying, "Only the people who were in that house know they really what went down that night, so we're just speculating." Well, Eben, there's other tweets coming in this morning, of course, in connecting to that story with Senzo Meyiwa.
Yeah, thank you very much, Janine. Yeah, a very sad day for South African sport when our national captain, Senzo Meyiwa, was gunned down exactly a year ago today. Now, let's take a look at today's picture of the day. It comes from the hashtag Fees Must Fall caption, wishing the class of 2015 all the best for their exams starting today. Here with grade 12s of Mtumaseli High, Mzumbe. Let's go international now. Take a look at the front pages from around the globe. We'll start in Europe, where the Times reports that Russia is pushing President Assad of Syria to hold elections next year as the Kremlin reaches out to the opposition there, promising them to help rebels of the Free Syrian Army in their battle against ISIS. Then, moving to China, the South China Morning Post says International Monetary Fund staff are set to give the all-clear for China's yuan to be included in the lender's benchmark currency basket, laying the groundwork for a favourable decision by policymakers. People familiar with the discussion say. Then finally, we go to Israel. The Jerusalem Post reports that Christian Russia and Shiite Iran's military alliance to help keep Syrian President Bashar al-Assad in power is fraught with underlying tension, which could be exploited by Israel or the United States. Let's take a quick look what's happening here in the country, in South Africa, in KwaZulu-Natal. We have a 20-year-old woman is expected to appear in the Pietermaritzburg Regional Court today for allegedly trying to sell her baby online. The woman allegedly advertised the sale of the 19-month-old baby girl she was on Gumtree. She's been charged with human trafficking after asking for 5,000 rand for the child. Time for us to take a break now. You're watching Newsroom here on SABC News.
SABC brings to you Rugby World Cup 2015. Let's do this.
Najja muka TV kandaga nga ndi mu abaana batya babiri kinali tidi nga bali bezingira endira era bankobera ati endira dezingira abaana abo singa nali njire luuyi mbutufu nali nja kuvuira mwa bango mwana asooka yaida bulungi yona yasembayo yaidira magulu.
Uganda is struggling to enhance the health care. We have a high infant mortality because of pregnancy-related conditions.
The mission of Imaging the World is to place affordable ultrasound machines in the most rural health facilities. Philips has been involved in the project from the very beginning.
Omulala niwe iswa Livingstone Salung. Owokubiri nitenywa Wilson Kabali. Singa nali njire luuyi nga timaze kufuna kubona kativi. Nali nja kuvuira mwawo.
Innovation and you. Philips.
The road to greatness is not an easy one. It's rough, tough, and full of barriers. And there's only one way to master it. Never, ever stop. Dauntless. The all-new Audi Q7.
SABC brings to you Rugby World Cup 2015. Let's do this.
Welcome back. You're still at Newsroom now. A state-of-the-art diagnostic system is set to revolutionise patient diagnosis in KwaZulu-Natal, and it's the first of its kind for microbiology on the African continent. The BD Kiestra at the Lancet Laboratories in Durban will enable the testing of different medical samples like urine and blood much quicker and in a more standardised manner. Now, for more on this development, we're joined by Dr. Chetna Govind, who's a clinical microbiologist at Lancet Laboratories in Durban. Very good morning to you, Doctor. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
Tell us a little bit more about this state-of-the-art, completely automated diagnostic system.
I think in order to understand this automated system, you first got to understand what is it that the microbiology laboratory does for you. And essentially what microbiology aims to do is help in establishing an etiology, etiology meaning the exact cause of an infective illness, be it bacterial, viral or fungal. And obviously in doing this, we hope to help guide the appropriate therapy of the patient. So traditionally, this has always been a relatively manual, time-consuming process in the microbiology laboratory. So automation has come in and streamlined this process. So essentially, it has made the whole process more efficient from the time we receive the patient sample to the time we get a result. And most importantly, I think, in making this process more efficient, we now get a quality result much quicker than we've had it traditionally. And once again, to emphasize that the quicker we get the result, the quicker we can appropriately treat a patient.
You talk about quicker. Just take us from previous to now. How much faster is this time frame?
Previously, from the time the laboratory received a specimen to the time we ultimately gave out the result of the diagnosis together with an antibiotic susceptibility result, it could take us anywhere from 3 to 4 days before the doctor eventually got a result as to which antibiotic would be appropriate to treat the patient with. With automation, we can now get a culture result out by 18 hours and ultimately give the doctor an antibiotic susceptibility result within 24 to 36 hours.
And what do you think this system will mean to healthcare in KwaZulu-Natal, but it's the first one on the continent, and how do we then expedite this?
Well, it's the first one on the continent for sure. I think it has major positive implications for healthcare in South Africa. And as much as I may seem like I'm repeating myself, just to go back, I mean, traditionally if a patient goes to see a doctor and he's got a fever and we're not quite sure what the cause of it is, the doctor would then send specimens to the laboratory and possibly start the patient on some antibiotics. Obviously, in order for the patient to get better as soon as possible, these need to be the correct antibiotics. So the quicker the laboratory gives you a result, the quicker we can establish the correct diagnosis and the correct treatment for this patient, and the quicker the patient gets better. I think that's the one major health benefit. The second one is linked to antibiotic resistance. I think there's been a lot in the media about superbugs and antibiotic resistance. I think a large part of this has been driven by antibiotic abuse or antibiotic overuse. So how we help here is by showing, firstly, is there a bacterial cause for this infection? And if so, or if not rather, you can stop using antibiotics. And if we have then established what the exact bacterial cause is, we can direct the correct antibiotic therapy better. And this removes some of the pressure on antibiotic usage. And hopefully by that, we tend to remove one of the major drivers of antibiotic resistance in this country. And it's not just a South African or an African problem, it's a global problem.
What about cost benefit? Is there cost benefit to this? Or is it going to make things a little bit more expensive for the person in the street?
Interesting, because generally with improved technology, etc., cost does increase. But with this particular technology, in order to improve the quality in the microbiology laboratory, this cost will not then be passed on to the patient. So the patient will spend the same amount of money whether he had his test run traditionally via the manual method or via the automated method.
And if I can ask you if you have any idea if there's a plan to, in the short to medium term, extend this or roll this out elsewhere in the country?
Well, within Lancet Laboratories, yes, there is a plan to roll it out to Gauteng, to Pretoria. If you're talking to me about microbiology as a whole, be it the public or private sector, I think automation is a technology that will take over microbiology laboratories. So sooner rather than later, I'm sure this is a technology that will be introduced in all laboratories countrywide.
Well, thank you very much for joining us today. That is Dr. Chetna Govind, who's a clinical microbiologist at Lancet Laboratories in Durban. We're talking about the state-of-the-art diagnostic system that is being rolled out there first on the continent. And she says, well, it's going to be rolled out elsewhere in the country as well as we move forward. Now, Tourism Minister Derek Hanekom last week announced that Cabinet had approved recommendations from the Interministerial Committee tasked with reviewing immigration regulations. The new regulations will still require children from non-visa exempt countries to travel with unabridged birth certificates in addition to their passports when entering or leaving the country. The new regulations have been widely applauded by the tourism industry. Our question of the day also relates to this exactly. We ask you in our question of the day to tell us what you think. There it is. How do you view the amendments to South Africa's visa regulations? That's our question of the day. Let's have a look at some of your tweets. There are some of the tweets that have been, well, Raymond Parsons, that's Professor Raymond Parsons, says visa regulations relief good mini-budget commitment to socio-economic impact studies overdue. South Africa must get more things right first time round, says Professor Parsons. And where to travel, says well done. And huge thanks to David Frost of SATSA for the work done to get the visa regulation reversed. Then Helke Burns says SA shooting itself in the foot with new visa regulations as the rand is the cheapest ever, says Azar Jamin of Econometrics. Well, those are some of your views with regards to visa regulations. Keep it coming. That was our question of the day as well. Keep it coming. Well, later in the show, we'll look back at what you're talking about with regards to this. Now, time for us to take a look at what's happening on our Newsroom Facebook page today. Of course, it's all systems go for the class of 2015 in the Western Cape and all over the country. Who will be sitting down to write their matric exams. More than 50,000 learners will write the English language paper at schools across the Western Cape. Then, foreign military personnel played a crucial role in stemming the Ebola outbreak in Liberia and Sierra Leone. This is according to researchers, but warned against treating their intervention as a blueprint for future humanitarian crises. Then, European leaders agreed to cooperate to manage refugees crossing the Balkans, but offered no quick fix to a crisis that threatens to take more lives as winter sets in and, well, set Europe's nations against one another on this prickly issue. Of course, to get all these updates, just go to our Facebook page, SABC Newsroom. In the Facebook search bar, our page will pop up, like it, and we'll go live with all the latest information in your feed throughout the day. Time for us to take another break. Newsroom will be back right after this.
In Africa, mobile devices are tools to make payments, browse the internet, and keep governments in check with social media forums.
It's given an average African too much power in their hands.
And tech creativity is solving some of the continent's problems.
Everything is internet driven.
And on Network, we tell you how Africans are using technology and social media in their everyday lives.
Join Siphumelele Zondi on Network every Sunday at 19:30 CAT.
Media Monitor, the title says it all. Can we really afford more job losses at such a critical time in our economy? Join our panel of experts as they unpack and monitor all the leading and breaking news stories making waves in the print and social media platforms. It seems we don't have a famous son-in-law any longer. Levi, what do you say to this? An A-lister.
I'll leave this one to Levi. He's the romantic.
Watch Media Monitor with me, Alicia Jali, Sundays at 9 a.m. only on the SABC News Channel.
SABC brings to you Rugby World Cup 2015.
Let's do this.
Welcome back. You're still with Newsroom on SABC News now. The days of reckless lending by credit providers are over. This after the long-awaited amendment to the National Credit Act came into effect recently. The Act aims to ensure that credit providers follow strict affordability assessments to make sure that those who borrow money will be able to pay it off. This comes after many people who were over-indebted were granted loans that they were simply unable to pay off. And they ended up being blacklisted, of course. Now, to talk to us a little bit more about reckless lending and the National Credit Act, we are joined by the Credit Ombudsman, Mr. Nicky Moen, here in studio this morning. Very good morning to you, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Morning, Evan, and morning to the viewers as well.
Just tell us about the amendments to the Credit Act and how it's playing out into our society right now.
Maybe, Eben, to answer that question, one has to look at what happened in the past. The National Credit Act came into being in 2007. When it came into being, one of the requirements to qualify for affordability was that you just had to be truthful about your expenses. So it was up to you to be truthful. The truth is that most people were not truthful, that many people actually lied about their expenses so that they could qualify for the loan.
Yeah.
And what would happen is that, okay, what you're telling me is true, I take it as granted, and I grant you the loan. The point is that those people that took those loans were unable to service those loans and therefore became over-indebted, and to a large extent, some of the loans extended were reckless credit. That had changed. On the 14th of September this year, regulations were passed in terms of the National Credit Act where a credit providers got to do a strict affordability assessment.
Yeah.
Affordability assessment requires 3 pay slips or 3 bank statements, verification of income, but more importantly, whereas previously you were asked what your expenses are, now there is a table that a credit provider must apply and take into account before granting you the credit. Now, what that table is, it's a minimum expense normed table.
Yeah.
It puts people into different income bands. So if you're in income band between 800 to 6,250, at least 800 Rand must be put down as your expenses.
Yeah.
So irrespective of what you tell me, it's going to be 800 that I will have to apply. And that table increases as your income increases.
Yeah.
To the point of where you're earning 50,000 and over, then at least 5,000 Rand must be stated down as minimum expenses. So what that means is that if you apply those rules, there's something called a discretionary income, and that is, do you have enough money to service the loan that is being afforded to you?
Take us back quickly to the dark days of reckless lending. How bad was the problem in South Africa before these amendments?
Well, you know, the research by the National Credit Regulator indicates that, you know, of 14 million credit active consumers, at least 11 million are over-indebted. Now, was that over-indebtedness due to their own making or due to reckless credit? We don't know. But we do get cases in our office where we investigate and we point out to the credit provider that this is bordering on reckless lending.
Yeah.
And we have the right to make a ruling in that regard or refer it to the national regulator. And in many instances, when we pick that up in the office, the credit providers refund the money to the credit receivers.
Yeah.
To date, we've put in like 4.7 million Rand back in consumers' pockets which they wouldn't have had, and many of that is reckless lending.
The government have come and instituted these changes. According to you, what do you think were the overarching goals when they put these changes into place in the medium and long term?
I think one of it mostly was to curb the over-indebtedness. Many people are over-indebted. Secondly was that many people were using credit history to deny people employment.
Yeah.
Now, that has changed to where your credit history can only be taken into account when you apply for a job or work that involves dealing with money or whatever way, honesty is required.
Yeah.
You know, there's no point in asking a cashier or a petrol attendant to go through an entire credit reference checking so that he qualifies for the job. So that was one of their aims as well. But the main aim is to curb over-indebtedness, is to bring down reckless lending, and it's to get people in a situation where they are able to meet their commitments and liabilities.
In order for us to flourish, though, as a nation, we need to save a little bit more money. Why do you think South Africa has such difficulty with saving?
That's a very good question. One of the problems is that, unfortunately, we have a consumption culture. In South Africa, we like to consume. We like the new sneakers that the neighbors got. We want the best shades in town. So we do things when we don't have the money in our pocket. The other thing about saving as well is that one of the reasons many people don't save is that the returns on savings is very, very minimal.
Yeah.
So if you take money and you put it into an account, you know, the old post office account or whatever, the returns on that savings were not attractive enough for you to continue saving. So that was one of the reasons as well. But at the end of the day, the reason why we don't save is that we're just hard-pressed. We are struggling to meet our daily commitments. We are struggling to meet our monthly commitments. And, you know, we did research. Do you know that people get financial advice? Do you know who they get it mostly from?
Who?
From friends and family. Because you sit at a braai and you chat, listen, I'm going to buy this car. And, you know, your buddy will give you also, check this out, you know.
Yeah.
But we don't do it, you know, go and get it professionally. So we take word of mouth from what our friend says, and we take that as gospel.
And people who want to know, get more information on the amendments to the National Credit Act, how it affects us, how do they do that, and how do they get into contact with your office?
There are a couple of things. They can go to our website, www.creditombud.org.za, or they can just send us an SMS, 44786. We will call them back and chat to them. They could also go to various websites, the government website, the National Credit Regulator website. Unfortunately, that may be a bit academic. It needs an explanation. We have professional people in the office that can assist and unpack that and explain to them, you know, what all of these amendments mean and how it will affect them, and grant them assistance where necessary.
Thank you very much for joining us. Very sobering ideas, very sobering thoughts. We have to save, and you have to consume less than what you have. That is the secret to a happy life, says the Credit Ombudsman, Mr. Nicky Moen, who's with us in studio today. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you, Evan.
Now, of course, it's supporters and friends of the late footballer Cecil Lolo. He passed away over the weekend. Say they are still reeling from the shock this after the Ajax defender's sudden passing in a car crash over the weekend. There have been varied comments on social media. Let's take a look at what some of them were with regards to the untimely passing of the young man. Now, Sipokolo Jali says, life ain't fair, my heart bleeds, I think. May Cecil Lolo rest in peace. We will surely remember you, my brother. How sad indeed that is. Then K. Mlotra says, it hurts when young people who are the hope and shining stars of our poor communities die before they fulfill their potential. He talks about Cecil Lolo. Yes, very sad over the weekend. Official Kate Loare says he was a polished diamond with footballing brains. Rest in peace. Talking about Tsepo, who says, as the roads keep claiming, let's all please take responsibility of our lives as well as those as around us. Yes, stark reminder of what would happen then. Vujilo Bundulu says, rest in peace, soldier Cecil, Lolo. I hope Ajax Cape Town will honour you this season with silverware. May God be with the family and friends during this time. Now, time for us to get a weather update shortly. Tsietse Pulmonary is here. Tsietse, where's the rain? Where's the rain, my friend? The rain isn't coming. Why is the rain so late?
Oh, no, it's coming. It's coming. Don't worry. Just be a little bit patient. I'm going to show you in just a short while that the rain is on the way.
Okay, the rain is on the way. Let's get a weather update now with Paul Manale.
Hi there, welcome from the weather desk. Yes, the rain is indeed on the way. Have a look at this. We're expecting up to 60% chance. There's a big chance of rain towards the eastern side of southern Africa, towards KwaZulu-Natal, the Eastern Cape Province, Gauteng, definitely over the northwest province, all over some parts of Mpumalanga. But then you need to look out for severe thunderstorms. It's still just a watch at the moment. It's not a warning just yet. And also we're expecting rain towards the eastern side of Madagascar. Clear skies are expected for the west, though, so dry conditions for the Northern Cape, the Western Cape, and up in towards Namibia, moving all the way towards the central part of Southern Africa. Then tomorrow, there's a small change. We're expecting the rain to move in closer now towards the northwest province. I suspect it will be moving towards the northern part over the next couple of days, and we're seeing some isolated showers for Botswana, some parts of Mozambique, definitely for Swaziland as well, and over Lesotho. You should expect some showers for today as well as over tomorrow. Temperature-wise, quite a hot day for most parts of South Africa. Starting by looking at Mafikeng, temperatures at 35 degrees. Vryburg is at 36. If you're going to be in the capital, 33 is what you should expect, closer to Hatfield as well as over the interior of Pretoria. Hot weather will be coming through. 33 for Welkom over the central parts of the country, but then slightly cooler conditions for much of the Eastern Cape Province. It gets hotter as you move towards Vrindal. Have a look at that. 38 degrees is your maximum temperatures. Most parts of the West are expected to be quite hot. Upington even at 40 degrees. And moving into the northern parts of South Africa, it is expected to get even hotter. But now have a look at this. The southern parts of Namibia are quite hot. Mariental and Keetmanshoop, both of them at 39 degrees. Oshakati also reaches those upper 30s at 39. Tsumeb, Potchefstroom, as well as Grootfontein, those are into the mid-30s, maybe even going as high as 37 degrees. And then there's a bit of mixture over Botswana. Much of the eastern side are expecting rain. Temperatures are still quite high, so also do expect some humidity there. Hukunzi is at 36, going to be quite sunny for the west. And if you move into Zimbabwe, similar conditions what you saw in South Africa, you can expect here. Gweru and Harare at 32 degrees. That's basically what we're experiencing here in Johannesburg. Hot weather returning towards 30 again. Temperature steadily picking up. But then it gets cooler for places such as Lichinga at 28. And even over the southern parts and the central regions of Mozambique, it will get a lot cooler. 26 for Vilankulo. Rainy weather towards Maputo. Partly cloudy skies are expected. The maximum temperatures at most will be just around 29 degrees, 27 to 29. So it is getting quite warm. It is at 29 as well. A little bit of thunder showers are expected for the eastern side of Madagascar. Traveling further towards the northern parts, expect similar conditions. In fact, there's also possibility of rain towards Mahajanga, just over the northwestern side. It's usually dry and sunny along those parts. But for today and for tomorrow, you should expect a bit of rain. The Comoros, beautiful islands here. Temperatures haven't changed much. 31 for major cities along those parts. Mamadzou at 31 degrees. And yeah, it stays the same, literally the same for days and days and days. And there's not much change towards Praslin at 30 degrees. You can see similar conditions for St. Denis. I can guarantee you by next week again, temperatures will be into those lower 30s. And that's why I leave it for the weather. But do stay tuned here on SABC News. There'll be more weather updates later.
Before you go, before I let him go, it looks like big rain is coming. Proper big rain.
Yep.
What do we do? How do we get ready, or how do we prepare? Because it's very dry now everywhere, and you know when the big rain comes, it can just wash everything away. How do you prep for that a little bit?
One of the best things is make sure we've got more soil than concrete, because then runoff becomes a lot bigger when there's a lot of concrete in. And also try to capture as much rainwater as you can and recycle it. Use that to water your plants, or even watering your garden. If you've got a small garden back home, rather use that instead of opening the tap. So capture as much rainwater as you can.
So you say it's the time of getting a big rain tank, and that you could last you throughout the rest of the year if you are smart about it.
Yeah, go for it. Be clever, man. Be wise and conserve.
Be wise. Be water wise, says Paul, Tsietsi Minari, always nice. By the way, did the box break your heart this weekend?
Too much, eh? Too much. But it was too painful. Let's not talk about it. Let's just move on.
Okay, I'm up for that. Let's not talk about that. Time for us to take a break now. We'll be back at the top of the hour. Alvis will give you a complete roundup. We'll be in Europe for an update on the migrants crisis. We'll be around the campuses here in the country to tell you what is happening with regards to the student protests, and also, of course, matric exams are underway right now. Don't forget our question of the day. Our question of the day asks of you, how do you view the amendments to South Africa's visa regulations? Some people have been saying that this is the great news that our tourism industry have been waiting for. Others say, well, the weak rand makes it a great opportunity. Lots of people are going to come over the holiday season. Let's hope it's a bumper festive season here in South Africa. We'll be back at 10 o'clock Central African time with a complete wrap-up of the news on the continent, in South Africa and the wider world. See you then.
SABC brings to you Rugby World Cup 2015.
Let's do this.
The act of travel is an eye-opening activity that not only expands your view but is a major part of any country's economy. South Africa's spectacular scenery, friendly people and world-class infrastructure make it one of the most desired destinations in the world. Despite tough global economic conditions, the tourism sector is steadily growing. But the idea that one has to go far in order to explore is quickly changing as the sector encourages local exploration. South Africa's history has been one of confrontation, but is now also known as one of reconciliation. World-class sites have been established to commemorate the country's past and celebrate its newfound unity. An area of tourism that is often overlooked is the question of the arts and tourism. Although many cities have not taken advantage of this element to attract international visitors, the domestic artistic tourism is fast becoming a key drawcard for local exploration. A-grade exhibition centers are creating modern spaces to showcase what makes up the African expression. A good dose of creative capital is playing a major role as entrepreneurs create new and exciting ways to sell their products, thus creating new vibrant local spaces that are changing the face of our communities. South Africa has earmarked tourism as a key sector with excellent potential for growth, and a vast amount is being poured into changing the face of our spaces, making them vibrant, urban, and exciting.
We ask tough questions.
Have you spoken to the president about resigning?
We ask hard questions.
What you're trying to do requires a lot of money, and you don't have money.
We ask quick questions.
A quick one. You are aware that the PAC has now been banned by the IEC?
I'm aware.
And you're also aware that it has been banned because of you?
We ask good questions.
Are you an infiltrated organization?
We also ask funny questions.
Is it safe to eat your chicken?
All the questions, all the time, right here on Question Time, Monday to Thursday at 5:30 p.m.
Welcome to Network, a technology news program that also discusses what's trending in social media in and around Africa. MTN has launched its new movie and television streaming service, Front Row. If it's trending, we will find it. That's Network with me, Spumela Zondi, every Sunday at 7:30 p.m. only on the SABC News Channel.
It's 10:00 hours Central Africa time on this Monday, the 26th of October 2015. Jumbo Africa, and a very warm welcome to the second hour. This is Newsroom on SABC News, Channel 404. We are broadcasting live from our Auckland Park studios in Johannesburg, South Africa, to the rest of the African continent. You have to stay with us as we bring you the latest news from here and around the globe. I'm Elvis Preston. I'll be your host until 12 o'clock. But first, let's take a look at your news headlines. Student protests are keeping many campuses around the country closed, despite last week's government announcement that there will be no hike in fees next year. Matric students currently underway with over 560,000 grade 12 learners writing English Paper 1. And vote tallying is underway in Tanzania hours after yesterday's general elections, although voting was delayed until today at some polling stations due to a shortage of voting materials. Those are all your headlines, but first, let's take a look at what's coming up in your sports news with Kendall Makamate. A very good morning to you.
Good morning, Elvis. A very hearty one at that, and good morning to you at home as well. This is what we've got in store for you in the sport. The Proteas put up an unassailable 438 runs to win their first ever ODI series in India, crushing the host by a stunning 214 runs. Australia to lock horns with New Zealand in the Rugby World Cup final this coming Saturday.
How much better has Lewis been this year than last year?
Lewis Hamilton wraps up his third championship title with a win in Austin. And it's derbies all round for the Telkom knockout semi-final. Kaizer Chiefs against Orlando Pirates and Mamelodi Sundowns host SuperSport United. And that, in a nutshell, is what we've got for you in the sports later on today. 10:20. Stay close. Back to you, Elvis.
Thank you, Kendall. Let's now take a look at your top story this hour. Protests are continuing at several other institutions. University of Pretoria students are reported to occupy the Client Services Centre at the entrance to the main Hatfield campus. Students are marching at the Tshwane University of Technology. Now, for the latest on the protest, let's now cross live to the University of Pretoria campus, where our reporter Sipho Stierman is standing by. Very good morning to you, Sipho. And can you paint us a picture? Tell us what's happening there.
Well, very good morning to you, Elvis. And there seems to be no end to the fees must fall protest. We are here at the University of Pretoria, where, according to a message that was released to students from university management, academic activities are supposed to have resumed today. And it seems that they have staff and students continuing with their academic works. But we do have a group of students that are still protesting, saying that a 0% increase for 2016 is not enough, saying that there are other concerns, such as fees in general are just too expensive, and they were calling for fees to decrease. And now what has happened here in the building behind me, the students have occupied the Client Service Centre building, calling for management to address their other concerns. And next to me to explain exactly why, despite the 0% increase that they got, the students, why are they still protesting, is the SASCO Secretary Thabo Shingange, who's going to explain to me what is this act of occupying the Client Service building is all about. Thabo, can you just please tell us what's happening here and what are the reasons behind this protest going on right now?
I think the reasons are very simple. We're saying
0% does not speak to even half of the issues that are affecting institutions of higher learning. For instance, the 0% doesn't speak to the financially excluded students who will have to deal with it as political organizations next year. It doesn't begin to speak to the students in residence who cannot afford residences and have to be kicked out of res at the end of the year. The 0% is only a way of minimizing the cries of the working class, the cries of the students. It's only a way to calm the process down, and we're saying 0% doesn't speak to anything of our demands. It only speaks to calm us down, and it's not enough.
Okay, so what do you want to happen now? What must happen now moving forward, especially considering that exams are so close?
I mean, exams are an issue for all of us, which is why we have a study group every night. We meet and we have a night vision. We study because we understand the importance of exams. Moving forward, I think it's an issue of the Vice-Chancellor having to come down and address the students on the demands which she can commit to. Mind you, there are demands that she, as the Vice-Chancellor of this university or its council, can commit to. Things we are tired of this blame shifting. We are tired of pep talks. We are tired of talk shows. We are demanding that this university listens to the students as the main stakeholders of this institution of higher learning. They cannot decide on students what students want. Students must now give the Vice-Chancellor what they want and demand what they want, and she must commit to those demands, of course, if it's within her capacity as a Vice-Chancellor, which they are.
Can you just list for me exactly some of these other concerns that you speak of that students have besides the 0% fee increase for 2016? What are the other issues that you speak of? Can you just list them for us?
I mean, to name but a few, for instance, in the University of Pretoria, we have this residence called Hatfield Studios, which costs a student 54,800 rand, excluding food, water, and electricity. Now, if the National Financial Student Aid Scheme, otherwise known as NSFAS, gives you 67,400 rand maximum, already 55,000 is gone to a residence. What about your tuition? What about your food? What about your toiletries? What about your textbooks? It's not enough. What that does is that it systematically excludes students next as a form of financial exclusion in the university. I mean, secondly, the food prices at this university, for the mere fact that the NSFAS gives you 14,400 rand for 6 months, and if you use 100 rand a day, that money will not last you till June. That is 14,000 rand. That's not going to last you for 5 months. And the food prices are very exorbitant. I mean, a plate on average costs you 45 rand for a meal, which you won't even get full in. So if you want to eat 2 meals a day, that's 100 rand gone, and you're limited. You're kept at 100 rand. By June, that money is finished, and then you have a situation which we are facing now, where students are hungry, students have nothing to eat, and the university is not willing to make commitments as to how we're going to assist the hungry students.
Okay, and just lastly, what about those that want to just resume with their academic activities and wouldn't like to see any more disruptions?
I mean, to say we're disrupting is also misleading the nation as well. I mean, we're also students as well. We are also affected by studies as well. And this is why we have a study group and a study session every single day after we strike. We first clean up and then we strike. But the thing is that also with the exams, exams will be written. I think the media must also portray this to students that we will write exams. We can strike and we can pass at the same time. We can strike and we can get our distinctions at the same time. It's an issue that concerns us, but we're also students out there. We mustn't be branded by privilege when we think something is not a problem because it's not affecting you personally. There are many students out there who are suffering in institutions of higher learning, which is why we need to heed their call for a more accommodative university in South Africa.
All right, well, that's the message there. They're saying that they can strike but still get those distinctions, and that there are far deeper issues with higher education than just the call for zero fee increment for next year. They speak of food prices being too expensive, residences being too expensive, and they want those issues addressed and not just the zero fee increment that was the main call for the Fees Must Fall protest taking place over the past few weeks.
Thank you, Sipo. That was Sipo Stierman, our reporter, coming to us live from Pretoria. We're staying with students and the University of the Witwatersrand's Vice-Chancellor Adam Habib has expressed his disappointment after students decided to continue with their Fees Must Fall protest. The students now want assurances regarding free tertiary education, among a range of other demands. Now this comes after government last week granted their demand for next year's fee hikes to be scrapped. Habib says a special meeting of the Wit Senate will be held today to discuss the protest and the resumption of the academic program. Wit's management are calling on student leaders to be open to negotiation and allow their studies and exams to go ahead. Meanwhile, Wits University spokesperson Sharona Patel says outstanding student demands such as outsourcing and lease agreements of residences will also be addressed at a special meeting of the Senate today. Now, for the latest update on the Wits student protest, let's now cross live to our reporter, Makaketla Moshlabe, who is at the campus. He is standing by with Wits University spokesperson Sharona Patel. Very good morning to you once again there, Makaketla. Can you just give us an update and then take it away with your guest?
A very good morning to you, Elvis. Of course, with me is the vice spokesperson, Shirona Patel. She's going to tell us about other issues that are actually affecting both the university and the students. Shirona, thanks so much for your time indeed. Could you please tell us what exactly are some of the issues that are actually affecting the university and how are they going to be dealt with?
So some of the issues that the student leaders and the students are putting on the table have to do with transformation. Now, we have agreed that as the higher education sector, it has been really slow in transforming in the last 2 decades. Some of the issues that the students are putting on the table is that of outsourcing. They want the university to insource all workers who are currently employed through service providers. So, for example, our cleaners, we have different service providers who employ our cleaners. We pay the service providers who then pay the cleaners. And the students are saying, no, Wits University should employ every cleaner directly, every landscaper directly, and especially people who are at the lower grades. So this will cost the university in the region of between 170 million rand and 200 million rand a year, if you look at people's salaries only. The university is saying that it's part of the larger transformation plan. It was raised at the meeting with government on Friday, and government has put together a task team that will look at the insourcing throughout the country in terms of universities. So some of the other issues in terms of transformation that we are dealing with, and which is part of our plan which we've implemented. This year, we've put in place 45 million rand for Black, African and coloured professors to attract new ones to Wits University, but also to look at the ones that are already in our system and to work with them to take them to full professoriate level. Secondly, we're looking at our language policy. We've got a new policy that has been approved by Senate and Council and which will be implemented. Thirdly, we are looking at the renaming of buildings, places and spaces. So we know that the students have renamed Senate House, Solomon Mahlangu House. We're saying, look, there is a process for this. We've done an audit of all our 260 buildings, our places and spaces. Let us all go and make contributions to what these names should be. The university is very open to that approach in this regard. We're looking at institutional culture, and that's something we're seriously looking at. Our transformation office is looking at the culture on campus. Are there issues of racism? Are there issues of favoritism? Where does cosmopolitanism fit in? What do we want as a South African university responsive to national transformation issues? So those are some of the issues on the table, which we have been addressing in, I'd say, the last year or so. We've got an implementation plan. We've got progress reports. They can all be found at wits.ac.za/VC if anybody wants to have a look.
Now, let's talk about the meeting that's going to take place at about 11 o'clock here. What are we expecting?
So the meeting is the meeting of Senate. Senate is the highest decision-making body of the university from an academic perspective. So they determine what the academic programs are. It consists of full professors, it consists of deans and the heads of schools, as well as representatives from the students. I think they have quite a large representation, around 10 to 15 people, if I'm not mistaken. We've got support staff, professional and administrative staff who are represented there, and members of council. So what Senate will deliberate on this morning, two things. The one would be the ongoing student protest, and secondly, when the academic program will resume and when examinations will resume. Now, we've had calls from many students, the majority, I'd say, of students who want to come back, who want lectures to resume, and who want to write their examinations. And we are overwhelmed with emails and calls from parents and students in this regard. What we are proposing, we're strongly encouraging the current student leadership to say, let us negotiate all these other issues that we don't agree with. Let's have a separate negotiation process and let that happen while the academic program and the examinations continue. We can't afford to lose a whole year for all our students. We can't afford for the examinations not to take place. And so whatever Senate decides today is what the management of the university will have to implement.
So just finally, in short, are you saying that whatever decision is going to come out of that meeting, even if the protests go on, you are still going to stick to the schedule of the exams?
Well, whatever the academics decide on today is what we will have to do. Management has no choice. They are bound by what Senate says in that regard. If Senate says that the academic program continues tomorrow, then so be it. Management has to make that happen. If they say exams are postponed for 2 weeks, then that's what needs to happen. I really can't tell you what the outcome will be, but we will be able to tell you later today once the Senate meeting has taken place.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. That was Shirona Patel, Wits University spokesperson. Alvis, back to you in studio.
Makhake Tla Moshlabe there at Wits University giving us the latest update there. Now, students at universities in KwaZulu-Natal are expected to resume their classes today. Now, unlike their counterparts in some parts of the country, classes and examinations were disrupted last week when students protested against the increment of study fees. The University of KwaZulu-Natal says the academic program resumes today. UNISA students who are writing exams on Friday were forced to abandon their exam paper when protesters stormed the exam venue. The institution will make arrangements with students concerned about the way forward. Some examinations had to be postponed at the Durban University of Technology, DUT. Meanwhile, the UKZN is expected to start its final examinations at the end of this month. Now, over 560,000 grade 12 learners across the country are currently writing English Paper 1. They will be examined in English Home Language, English First Additional Language and English Second Additional Language. Over 800,000 part-time and full-time candidates have registered for this year's matric exams. Government says it has put measures in place to ensure that cheating, which marred last year's matric exams, does not happen again. Several thousand learners began their practical exams last week. The last paper will be written on the 30th of November. The South African Depression and Anxiety Group, meanwhile, has urged parents to create a conducive studying environment for their children during exam time. Meanwhile, the spokesperson for the Department of Basic Education, Elijah Mhlanga, says they have not received any information of events that could threaten the success of the matric examination process. We do like to apologize for the poor sound quality in the following clip.
We are hoping that the picture that we are seeing here at Windwood High is exactly the same as in all other provinces and as well as in all of our 6,797 examination centers. We're expecting a very quiet environment everywhere with learners focusing on the examinations, and we haven't even received reports of any community protests that could disrupt the examinations because we work very closely with the police and they've told us that everything is fine so far.
Today marks a year since Bafana and Orlando Pirates captain Senzo Meyiwa passed away. Meyiwa was shot and killed while visiting his girlfriend Kelly Khumalo at her mother's house in Vosloorus in Gauteng's East Rand. To this day, no one has been arrested for his murder. SABC News reporter Mbuzo Mkhize spoke to Senzo's father, Sam Meyiwa, to find out how they are holding up.
The family is hurt and we don't understand what is going on. When my son was killed, there were people in the house, but no one wants to speak. Even the police have gone quiet. They no longer update me on what is happening with the case. The person who killed Senzo is out there carrying on with his life as if nothing happened.
Do you know why the police have decided not to update you?
Police say I'm jeopardizing the case when I speak to the media. Why must I keep quiet? I want the killer to be arrested. It hurts me that the police are no longer updating us on the case and have decided to outcast me. I pray that the police do their job so we can find peace. All we want is the truth.
SABC News tried to get the South African Police Service to comment on their leads, but they have sent us from pillar to post. But for Sam Meyiwa and his family, their hope is to see Senzo's killer behind bars, and only then they will make peace with his untimely death.
President Jacob Zuma has hailed Oliver Tambo as one of the greatest leaders of the African National Congress. He was delivering the O.R. Tambo Memorial Lecture at Nangoza Jebe Hall in Port Elizabeth last night. President Zuma says if Tambo were alive, he would put people first.
A wise, extraordinary leader who prided himself in serving people. A genius of his time, but not individualistic, able to listen to the views of others. He says O.R. Tambo believed in education, and it's fitting that in honor of his legacy, government prioritizes free education for those who cannot afford.
The Polokwane ANC resolution on education also states categorically that the movement should progressively introduce free education for the poor until undergraduate level. The message from the students that were marching in the past week is therefore in line with ANC policy.
The president says it would have been Tambo's mission to call for united ANC, the only way to properly perform its work as mandated by the Freedom Charter.
He would require of us to be steadfast on principle and to display revolutionary discipline. He would remind us that our responsibility is to give our people hope and direction during the most difficult periods. Most importantly, he would urge us to continue with the fundamental transformation of our country and to work for economic freedom more vigorously now that political freedom has been achieved.
Those in attendance were inspired by the life of O.R. Tambo, committing to follow in his legacy of excellent leadership. A call Zuma made to party members to always put the people's interests first. Lerato Tipa, SABC News, Port Elizabeth.
And that's your news for now. Let's take a quick break, and Kendall Makamate standing by with your sports news.
SABC brings to you Rugby World Cup 2015. Let's do this.
An ancient culture carried to these shores a lifetime ago, fusing, merging, growing to transcend lines, cultures and sound, embodied in a voice that speaks to you without forgetting. Do you listen to it? Lotus FM, share the experience.
We ask tough questions.
Have you spoken to the president about resigning?
We ask hard questions.
What you're trying to do requires a lot of money, and you don't have money.
We ask quick questions.
A quick one. You are aware that the PAC has now been banned by the IEC?
I'm aware.
And you are also aware that it has been banned because of you?
We ask good questions.
Are you an infiltrated organization?
We also ask funny questions.
Is it safe to eat your chicken?
All the questions, all the time, right here on Question Time, Monday to Thursday at 5:30 p.m.
SABC brings to you Rugby World Cup 2015. Let's do this.
Good morning and welcome back. I'm Kendall Makamat and I've got your sports on Newsroom. Now, our top story for this sports bulletin is Australia have admitted that it would take something special to beat New Zealand in next weekend's Rugby World Cup final at Twickenham. The Wallabies defeated Argentina 29-15 in their semi-final in London yesterday, while the Kiwis went through following a nail-biting win over South Africa. Let's take a look.
The Wallabies were always the favourites to beat the Pumas at Twickenham, but the Argentinians made life difficult for the world's second-best side. Eighth man David Pocock was superb, while winger Adam Ashley Cooper scored a hat-trick in an immensely physical battle. Although they left the field bloodied and bruised, the Aussies were proud of their achievement after coming through the so-called pool of death.
Guys are playing for each other and they want to play for Australia, and they're committed when they run on the field. Hasn't always been perfect, but the commitment's there, and that's the basic.
But now the world's best team awaits them in the final, and Checker knows that nothing less than an extraordinary performance will be good enough.
We've only beaten them once, I think, out of the last 10 rounds, something like that. So I think they'd be feeling pretty good that they've got our measure, and it's going to be up to us to do something special, do something extra to just be competitive.
Despite sharing a rich Bledisloe Cup history, the two sides have never met in a Rugby World Cup final. New Zealand will be desperate to successfully defend their crown, while the Aussies will also aim to become the first team in history to win rugby's most prestigious title 3 times. Liesl Zankel, SABC News.
Now, to wrap up all the weekend's cracking action, I'm joined by Harry Willifeed, sports journalist from right here in the SABC. Good morning and welcome back to Newsroom.
Good morning, Kendall. Nice to be here.
Very good, very good. The first thing that we're going to talk about, of course, is the Rugby World Cup. Was the final, because now we know who the finalists are going to be. It's Australia against New Zealand. Was it what you expected to see before this weekend?
It's definitely not what I was hoping for. We wanted South Africa to be there. I thought before the game that South Africa did have a chance, the Springboks did have a chance to beat the All Blacks. But unfortunately, the All Blacks, we have to admit this, the All Blacks were the better team on the day. I think every single Springbok player that played on the field and was part of that game gave it 150%. Mistakes were made, yes, and we can point fingers to mistakes. But the Springbok team that played gave their all. So we can be proud of them. It was a tight game. It was a nice game to watch. But moving forward, we need to look at our playing patterns. We were technically and tactically, we were not good enough to compete with the All Blacks. And we need a change of style in our rugby. We've got exceptional talent in this country that's coming through the systems. And we need to look at how to best manage that talent. An attacking player, just for an example, an attacking player, don't put him in a structure where he needs to be conservative. That's what I would like to see going forward. And I think it needs all the role players in South Africa. It doesn't help if we play Super Rugby at a certain level or a certain pace and it doesn't flow over to the national side. That's what I'm hoping for.
Very interesting. I think you've covered in a nutshell exactly what a lot of people wanted to get in terms of your opinion on the Springboks and rugby going forward. You talk about attacking players and you talk about playing rugby at a certain level. We look at the Golden Lions.
Yes.
Over the weekend, the Golden Lions won the Currie Cup final. Now, was the fact that a lot of their star players were not chosen to take part in the Springbok squad, was it a blessing in disguise for the Lions?
I don't think so. All the teams that play in the Currie Cup division, from the start, the Springboks are not part of the squad. So they've got time to adapt. I think it's the way that the Lions are playing rugby. And I saw an analyst over the weekend saying that if the Springboks played like the Lions, we would have lost even further against the All Blacks. I disagree with that. The Lions play attacking rugby within a structure. It's not like they're trying to throw the ball from here and there and everywhere. They play within the structure. If you look at the amount of tries they've conceded this season, I think it's 28 tries, the Bulls 27, Province 26, something like that. So they haven't conceded a lot of tries. The defensive capabilities is right up there with the best teams in this Currie Cup. So it's a bit of a lie if you look at that they're only playing attacking rugby from all over the field and their defensive structures are not in place. So yeah, it is a blueprint I think, for South African rugby going forward. Like I say, attacking play within structures.
All right, now let's just remind people of exactly what the finals are going to look like at the Rugby World Cup. We've got New Zealand against Argentina, New Zealand against Australia. That's what I thought it might be. New Zealand against Australia in the final. This happens on Saturday afternoon, but prior to that, we've got third place playoff, which is where Argentina will be playing our very own Springboks. Kick-off Olympic Park, 10 p.m. on Friday night. That's our time. And then 6 o'clock on the next day, New Zealand, Australia. Give us a quick prediction before we talk about Proteas.
Look, I think Argentina is my team of the tournament so far in terms of the way they played. The Boks must win them, must beat them. We are a stronger team than them. A bit of revenge for the Rugby Championship. Anytime people say it's maybe a dead rubber game, it's not. Every time you play for the Springboks, you give your best. A lot of people might be playing their last games for the Springboks, so they'll give their best. So I think they'll be up for it. And after the disappointment this weekend for Argentina, I think the Argentines, they had a lot of injuries in this game as well. A lot of their key players out. So Springboks to win, New Zealand to win the final. I just think New Zealand are much more professional side. If you look at the way they played against the Springboks, they never look like they're going to panic. They're always in control of the game.
That is true, Harry, and that's exactly what I think makes them stand apart from most of the other teams, which is what the Proteas did out in India. For the first time getting a series win. Fantastic start. 24 years since we started playing against the Indians. We beat them on their home soil. Fantastic by Quinton de Kock, Rabat, in fact, the whole team.
Just goes to show you that if we don't just rely on AB de Villiers and the other batsmen chip in, we can be unbeatable in world cricket. I mean, that was a stunning performance from the bat. And then the bowlers followed up. I mean, if you look, I mean, you talk about Rabada, yes, he took 4 wickets, but then in the middle overs when Farhan Baradin came on, I mean, he went for a lot of runs, but in the context of the game, he kept them to, say, 7, 8 runs and over. And they could just score singles off him. So that's also key. Like you said, it was a whole team effort. Bowlers, batsmen, and it was just nice to watch. And hopefully we can't play every game like this, but most of the games.
Okay, and finally, before we let you go, because we've run out of time, with regards to our under-17 men's team getting kicked out of the World Cup, it was their first time at the World Cup out in Chile, and they didn't quite make it. What do you think? Is this gloom and doom for South Africa's future?
I don't think so. It's the first, like you rightly said, it's the first time we've qualified for this tournament. We all know South African soccer battle with, scoring goals. I think we should just get a better youth system in place. Maybe play soccer at schools, tournaments, school against school, and teach kids how to score goals. Make scoring goals look good. You want to score goals. And also our discipline. We gave away a lot of penalties. I think in all our games we gave away penalties. So, yeah, it's a bit of discipline, but we can't knock it too much because it's the first time there, so the only way is up. So there's a lot for us in our South African sport that happened over the weekend that we can build on, but we mustn't sit back and relax. We must build on it. We must now go out and make sure we can go further and beat the likes of Australia and New Zealand and all the big soccer powers in the world.
No, fantastic. Harry, I want to thank you very much. We didn't get to talk about Lewis Hamilton winning his third.
I know it's boring, he wins all the time, but well deserved.
Well deserved.
You still have to win it.
Yeah, no, very well done. And it was a very tough one because the conditions kept changing over the day. That's Harry Olifir chatting to us about all the stuff that happened over the weekend, all the cracking moments that we saw, and we do believe that we'll be trying to catch up with him again sometime next week to see if we can get more of the same. That's where we're going to leave it with this Sports Bulletin. We'll be back with more. Stay close. You're watching Newsroom.
Health Talk, your show on health practice.
The people being empowered with knowledge so that they can change their behavior and reduce their risk of being sick.
How serious is stress at work?
If we don't address workplace stress, that negative stress, then it can lead to burnout and it can lead to depression.
How does absentees affect companies?
The one that's really problematic for employers is the one that is unscheduled.
How can companies organize their wellness program?
Health promotion mustn't just be a one-size-fits-all type of approach. It must be customized based on understanding of the unique needs of that particular organization.
For health tips that will help you to adopt healthy living with Dr. Cecil on Health Talk every Saturday.
Welcome back. You're still with Newsroom. Time for us now to shift the focus to the news that is happening around the continent of Africa today. Now, we can start where at least 5 people have been killed as torrential rains flooded the city of Alexandria in Egypt yesterday. A man and 2 children were electrocuted to death when a cable from a tramway fell into a flooded street in the city. It's also believed that a captain of a ship has drowned in his car. Then, at least 45 suspects have been arrested and charged over alleged Boko Haram plot to attack Nigeria's financial capital. The Nigerian Department of State Services picked up about 60 suspects from different locations in Lagos before making official arrests. It's believed that the suspects planned to attack the Dolphin estate in Ikoyi. Then 3 African nations took to the polls over the weekend in what has been described as hotly contested presidential elections. Now, we start in the Republic of the Congo, where we saw a low turnout of voters, especially in the capital, Brazzaville. But the nation awaits the results of yesterday's referendum on whether to amend the constitution to enable one of Africa's longest-serving leaders, President Denis Sassou Nguesso, to seek a third term, extending his 31-year grip on power in that country. Meanwhile, Tanzania's elections saw a higher turnout as new opposition coalition tries to end the governing party's 54-year grip on power there. Then also in the Ivory Coast has been commended for their peaceful elections as the West African nation held its first presidential election since a disputed vote 5 years ago triggered violence that killed more than 3,000 people. Now, an al-Shabaab military base in Somalia has been destroyed by Kenyan military troops. Yesterday, Kenyan troops under the African Union mission in Somalia destroyed an opposition base at Yantui by Juba River in southern Somalia in what was a dawn attack. At least 15 extremist fighters were killed in the attack. Kenya has seen several attacks by al-Shabaab, who opposes Kenyan military involvement in Somalia. Now, yesterday, leaders of Greece and other countries along the main migrant trail in Europe discussed solutions to the EU migrant crisis. German Chancellor Angela Merkel said Europe still had a long way to go before it gained control of its biggest refugee crisis since the end of World War II. Just over a month ago, the world turned heads to the European migrant crisis. Hundreds of thousands of refugees from mainly Syria and Afghanistan have fled their country in the hope of finding a place of safety, a new home. The influx of refugees has been overwhelming for some nations as some begin to shut their borders now. More than 700,000 migrants have arrived in Europe this year alone, and the numbers continue to rise. Just last week, 9,000 refugees arrived in Greece, while Hungary closed its border with Croatia, leading to about 58,000 people flooding Slovenia's borders. But winter's coming now, and aid agencies are concerned that a plan needs to be reached soon, or many of the refugees will not make it through the cold season. Now, to tell us a little bit more, we are joined via Skype from Brussels by our very own correspondent there, Jack Parrock. Very good morning to you, Jack. Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure. Good morning to you.
Now, let's just recap for the weekend. Leaders from several European countries held a small summit in Brussels yesterday in order to find a common position on the crisis. It's believed that a 7-point plan has been agreed upon. Can you tell us what the solution plan entails?
Indeed, a 17-point plan is what they agreed, which is very typical of the European Union. But the rest of this meeting wasn't particularly typical of the European Union. The documents seemed very rushed. There were spelling mistakes, which is very uncommon for the European Union. But that is because this crisis is really becoming incredibly worse. And the leaders, especially on this Western Balkan route, non-EU countries like Albania, the former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia, Serbia, they are the places where it's really becoming very difficult, along with Slovenia. And they agreed, in fact, to put an extra 100,000 places in refugee reception centres for people. They also agreed to give Slovenia an extra 400 police officers to try and deal with the extremely high numbers of people that are in Slovenia at the moment since Hungary closed the border. And what they also agreed to do, and this is pretty crucial, is they said that they would stop sending refugees and migrants, transiting them through the country from the southern borders to the northern borders without registering them, which is what a lot of these countries are accused of doing. So just handing over the people and the new arrivals to other countries. Now, whether they can actually uphold that promise is the real question here, with the amount of people that are arriving in the Western Balkan countries.
Now, Jack, there have also been questions asked around Turkey's position within this refugee crisis. What was discussed yesterday with regards to Turkey's position? And if you can maybe tell us why Turkey is so significant in finding an overall solution.
Well, the reason Turkey is significant is because many of the people that are entering the European Union are fleeing Syria. That's the reality. And they're fleeing through Turkey. There's just under 2 million people thought to be held up in refugee camps in Turkey, where the conditions are said to be getting very, very difficult. So they're making their way over the water in the Mediterranean to Greece and then up through the former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia, Serbia, Croatia and Slovenia. Now, the EU says that Turkish cooperation is absolutely vital to trying to solve this crisis. They put forward a draft action plan to Turkey, which included €3 billion in aid to try and get Turkey to set up refugee camps for Turkish citizens, for Syrians there in Turkey. And they were also starting to discuss visa liberalisation for Turkish citizens, which is what the government in Ankara, the Turkish capital, wants. But those negotiations and those agreements still seem a long way off. And the leaders of the Western Balkans yesterday, pretty much all of them said, it's all well and good trying to get us to solve this crisis, but really where the flashpoint is, really where this refugee and migrant crisis needs to be solved, is on that crossing between Greece and Turkey to stop the refugees leaving Turkey and entering the European Union in Greece.
Now, Jack, tell us a little bit about German Chancellor Angela Merkel. She's got a plan to create holding camps ahead of the winter to kind of slow down the trickle up north, as they're calling it. Tell us a little bit about these camps and how is this plan going to help?
Indeed, so she wants the Western Balkan countries to set up reception centres. So rather than just pushing the refugees north and north to the countries that they want to reach, which are countries like Austria, Germany and Sweden, she wants countries like Serbia, non-EU countries, countries like the former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia, to set up and be able to hold some of the people there to try and relieve the tension from people just flooding into the European Union northwards. Now, that has been somewhat agreed, but whether it can really, really be put into practice with the huge numbers of people that are arriving, 9,000 people per day into Greece, they're saying at the moment, 58,000 people into Slovenia last week. Slovenia is a small country of 2 million people. 58,000 people per week is a huge, huge number. Germany is expecting the highest numbers of refugees and asylum requests this year, and it's looking like they're going to get well over 1 million. So it's a long way to try and really work out whether this is going to happen. And what a lot of the journalists, what a lot of observers have been saying is, what is the end game of this of these practices? So at the moment there's small ideas of trying to set up refugee camps and refugee places, but really how does the European Union see this in a year's time, 5 years' time, and 10 years' time? What are they going to do then?
Finally, Jack, Slovenian Prime Minister Miro Cerar, he has come out and he says that if Europe does not come to terms with this problem and deal with it decisively, it could fall apart. We could see real splits in the Union. Is that a possibility?
Well, I think it's an incredibly difficult time for the European Union at the moment. The Schengen zone, the border-free Schengen zone, the pride of the European Union, free movement for citizens without having to have their passports checked. That is now really, really being called into question because they can't keep track of the people coming in. Now, this crisis is somewhat unprecedented, depending on your position. Some people would say it could have been predicted, but it's something that the European Union is having to react to. And this is not the first crisis in recent years that the EU has had to face. We've had the Greece crisis, the financial crisis, with Greece almost leaving the euro, and the Ukraine crisis within a year or pretty much. So there are some real questions about how the European Union is beginning to handle these crises.
Thank you very much, Jack. That's our European correspondent, Jack Parrock, coming to you live from Brussels, talking about the European refugee crisis that continues to escalate there, it seems. Now, of course, back home, on the continent, results are starting to trickle in Tanzania's most competitive election yet. The ruling party, the CCM, has been up against a coalition of 4 opposition parties. We'll look at what its candidate, John Magufuli, has promised to bring to Tanzania in the hope to end the CCM's 54-year rule.
John Magufuli emerged the winner of Chama cha Mapinduzi's primaries in July this year, beating a long list of aspirants to the nomination with an overwhelming 87% support.
There were 42 CCM members who showed interest to run for presidency, and then 38 were able to, submit their nomination forms. And then from there, Magufuli emerged as the person that really could represent the founding ideals of CCM.
The 55-year-old former scientist and teacher has spent the last 20 years in government, 15 of them in the Works Ministry, quietly revamping Tanzania's infrastructure and roads, and in the process building a solid reputation as a no-nonsense minister in both the rural and urban areas.
It's characterized with attributes of a hard-working person, is a man of ethics, is a man of integrity.
In this election, the primary accusation against CCM is the level of corruption within government. In his campaigns, Magufuli has styled himself as an agent of change, putting some distance between himself and his party members. Among a long list of election promises, he's vowed to end systemic corruption and to clean up the civil service.
He's a doer, and he's popularly known as a caterpillar, a person that really drives and, things are around in the best interest of the nation. So if Magufuli comes into power, for sure there's not going to be business as usual within CCM, and for sure there's not going to be business as usual within the civil service.
Presidential results will be announced by midweek, and Magufuli will know whether the electorate believes that he can deliver on his promises. Shingai Nyoka, SABC News, Dar es Salaam, Tanzania.
Well, results continue to trickle in from this weekend's elections in the East African country. We'll keep you updated a little bit later in the day as to the first preliminary results. Our contributing editor, Vuyo Mboko, is there, and we should be live there at around midday or shortly after for an update. Now we move on, as there have been calls by the eastern part of Nigeria for the creation of a new nation stemming outside of Nigeria. One of the voices leading the creation, called Biafra Republic, is Nnamdi Kanu, who is now in detention there. Recently, Kanu, a political activist and the director of Radio Biafra, has used the airwaves to champion the movement that is supported by thousands in and outside of the country. The Nigerian government has, however, called the movement a terrorist threat. But Kanu's detention has sparked protests around the country, seeing thousands now calling for his release. To help us understand this, we are joined in studio today by Nigerian journalist Solomon Izanga Shoms. Good morning, Solomon. Always nice to have you with us.
Thanks a lot. Good to be here, Evan.
Tell us about Biafra Republic movement, what it's all about, and what they're really hoping to achieve.
Well, to understand Biafra, and the movement itself, you have to go back to the 60s, when Nigeria had its first civil war between 1967 and 1970. It was 2.5 years of civil war within Nigeria between Nigerian army and the Biafran army that was headed by General Emeka Ojukwu, who was part of the Nigerian army, but then he now said, look, we felt the Igbos, especially people from the south and the eastern part of Nigeria, has been marginalized. So there was a civil war for 2.5 years. Just trying to create the Biafra Republic and say, look, we have a republic. And actually, they created a republic, and countries like Gabon, Cote d'Ivoire, they supported them and they recognized them as a nation. Even South Africa actually supported the Biafra Republic. But in the course of that, over 1 million people, lives were lost. Children, there was starvation, and they had to give in. So that was the movement for the southeastern part of the country, saying, look, we need our republic, because the northern part of the country, which is headed by a lot of the Muslims that we know, they felt there's a lot of cultural, religious differences, and they needed to have their own republic.
Tell us about these differences. The original conflict, is it stemmed, or does it sort of happen along religious lines and cultural differences? And how do they see this new this new country come into existence?
Well, politically, there's been a lot of differences between the northern part and the eastern, southern part of Nigeria. They feel whenever Nigeria has a northern leader like General Muhammadu Buhari now, there seems to be some sort of discrimination against the southeastern part of Nigeria, economical discrimination, political discrimination. People from the southeastern part don't get political appointments, where in strategic positioning. And also there is a lot of cultural differences because the cultures are totally too different because of the religious differences. The eastern southern part of Nigeria is predominantly Christian, and the northern part is predominantly a Muslim, where I come from, though I'm Christian. But still there is that engagement, a lot of it. But now there's been that movement a lot also. President Goodluck Jonathan, the former president, was from the southern part of Nigeria. So during his tenure, the cause for Biafra was a little bit minor. But now with Buhari coming on board, the movement has been growing, especially through Radio Biafra. That has been going on for a long time. Broadcasting from London, actually, on shortwave and also internet radio. There's been a cause that's saying, look, we need our own republic. There's a lot of differences. Let's not just deceive ourselves. Nigeria as a federation cannot stand together because of these differences.
Now, the last year, there's been a lot of momentum gained, a lot of traction for this. What are Nigerians saying about this right now?
There's been a bit of division, Eben, between the people, the citizens of Nigeria. Some are actually saying, look, with different factions that we've seen. First, we saw the Niger Delta militants wanting their own economic rights. Then we saw Boko Haram recently, saying, look, we need our own rights also from an Islamic perspective. Now the eastern part is saying, look, we want that too. But Nigeria has been through a lot as a nation that a lot of people are beginning to think if that is possible. About 40 years ago, the Biafra Civil War, about 1 million people were killed. Do we want to go back there once more? Do we want to go back to a place where we say, look, we have to break down the country? If we break down the country, then we have to break it down into maybe 4 or 5 different nations, because Nigeria is so diverse and so multicultural that you have to do that. So people are a bit divided. Though Nnamdi Kanu, the leader of the Radio Biafra, he's gotten a lot of support, especially overseas, where you have a lot of Igbo people. And the protests, he was detained last Monday, and we've seen a lot of people hitting the street and saying, look, we want him to be released. Though the government has the right to question him, because they see him as a threat. Some of the things he has said against the government and also against the leader and the citizens of Nigeria is really intense.
Well, Solomon, thank you very much for joining us. It's something we'll keep an eye on. It'll certainly be a massive development on the continent. I thank you once again. Nigerian journalist Solomon Izanga Shoms joining us here in studio today. Now, we move on. 10 Eritrean football players are currently seeking asylum in Botswana. The players refused to board the plane to return home after recently playing the Botswana national team in a 2018 World Cup qualifier. They cited human rights violations and slavery-like treatment as the reason for not returning home. Recently, the Botswana High Court prevented government from deporting them. The players are currently incarcerated in Francistown till the next court appearance on December the 11th. Their case was taken to the Lobatse High Court in Botswana by the Pretoria-based Eritrean Movement for Democracy and Human Rights. Now, for the latest on the plight of the players, we are joined in our studio in the capital by the EMDHR media coordinator, Kulobren Abraham. A very good morning to you, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity.
Please give us an update. What's the latest regarding the 10 players in Botswana, and are they still being held in Francistown?
Yes, still they are in Francistown. As you stated it earlier, it was very bad situation. You know, at the instance, the Minister of Defense, Justice and Security in Botswana decided to deport them, but fortunately, they reversed the decision, and now they are going to have the hearing in December 11. They are still in the custody, but they are in a good condition, and they have access to communication and other stuff.
Just give us a quick update. We've been told that they've been unable to meet with their lawyers. Is that still the case?
No, it was in the beginning, but they are able now to communicate. You know what happened? After we hear that they are going to be deported, we approached the Bay Fort and Associate law firm, and last week they went to the detention. They have a meeting with the foot player, and they are sure they are in a good condition.
What are they doing right now? What are they busy with in Botswana at the moment? If you can give us an idea.
Well, they are in custody, so they are not doing anything. They are waiting for the decision. So we hope the Botswana government, as it shows the solidarity for the Eritrean plight, especially for this poor football player who came out of the oppressive regime, they stick to their decision and they grant them the refugee status or whatever they have in the land. But currently they are not doing anything. They are in the custody.
Well, I thank you very much for joining us today. That is in our the media coordinator of the Eritrean Movement for Democracy and Human Rights, Mr. Kulobren Abraham, joining us in the capital, Pretoria, this morning. Now, Bright House, a leading supplier of digital, automotive and SAP solutions, has introduced Hello Tutor. Hello Tutor is an internet-based platform through which teachers and tutors can take videos of their lessons and upload them into a system for learners to download onto their computers, mobile phones and laptops. The platform is an open education environment where teachers are able to reach hundreds of thousands of students from all walks of life through one lessons. Now, to give us a little bit more detail, we're joined by the founder of Hello Tutor, James West. Good morning, James. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning. Thanks for having me, and good morning to all your viewers.
Tell us about where you are with this project and what made you decide to start this.
Well, you know, it's no secret that the basic education in South Africa faces numerous challenges. The whole idea was triggered by the World Economic Forum's reports of 2013 and 2014, which were less than flattering about the maths and science education being received by many of our learners, specifically the underprivileged, people who were being put on the back foot very early on in life through no fault of their own, simply through circumstance effectively. And being put on the back foot early on kind of just gets worse and worse and develops negatively over time. So we really put our heads together and we thought, you know, what can we do to improve the situation? There's certainly a lot of good work happening out there, but where could we come in and not only, as you mentioned earlier, touch the lives of hundreds of thousands of people, but really have a dramatic effect and touch the lives of possibly millions of people. We've got a huge population of underprivileged, underserviced learners in South Africa, and we have excellent teachers in South Africa. It's not as if we don't have great maths and science teachers across the board. It's about bringing the two parties together in an effective and efficient way, and that's really what we set about having a look at.
Now, just give us an overview of how Hello Tutor works, and then Who are you targeting?
Okay. Hello Tutor basically is, as you mentioned earlier, an online platform. We upload, in conjunction with our subject advisors, the blueprint of the South African curriculum, both the CAPS curriculum and our AEB curriculum, in short bite-sized chunks, basically a library effectively. Tutors across the board, anyone who can prove their ability to be a tutor, can be a current teacher, can be a professional tutor, a university lecturer, a retired teacher who's been lost to the system, can upload videos, short bite-sized chunks on the curriculum into the system. Those videos then get accessed by learners, anyone with access to the Wi-Fi, and they are then able to watch those videos for 48 hours. The videos cost R2 per video to watch at the moment. And our main target market, as you said, it's all walks of life. So the underprivileged is a huge focus for us. But even the privileged community have been using Hello Tutor a lot to look at things after school and before exams.
What makes Hello Tutor different from other online resources?
So it's a very good question. There are other excellent online resources. But the beauty of Hello Tutor is that it utilizes a crowdsourcing kind of approach. So we launched in the beginning of this year in March, and we already have 400 registered tutors. And effectively, the demographic of our tutors over time will match the demographic of the learner population. So we'll have as many Zulu-speaking tutors, as Sotho-speaking tutors, as Siswati-speaking tutors, as English-speaking tutors. And for us, it's important that kids are given an opportunity to learn things, and often technical concepts, in their own language first, and then they can also look at English videos.
Well, James West is the founder of Hello Tutor. Thank you for joining us. We've run out of time. We've got to go to the news at the top of the hour now. Let's go straight there. Elvis is standing by for, a compute news update for us.
Your World makes it its business every evening to round up the leading local stories and international news to keep you informed all the time.
Make a date with Your World every evening for all the news headlines around the world to keep you abreast with knowledge.
Catch Your World for headlines across the world every Monday to Friday from 9 p.m, then Saturday and Sunday from 7 p.m.
Media Monitor, the title says it all. Can we really afford more job losses at such a critical time in our economy? Join our panel of experts as they unpack and monitor all the leading and breaking news stories making waves in the print and social media platforms. It seems we don't have a famous son-in-law any longer. Levi, what do you say to this? An A-lister.
I'll leave this one to Levi. He's the romantic.
Watch Media Monitor with me, Alicia Jali, Sundays at 9 a.m. only on the SABC News Channel.
SABC brings to you Rugby World Cup 2015.
Let's do this.
It's a shade after 1100 Central Africa time here on Wednesday, on Monday, the 26th of October 2015, Jumbo Africa, and a very warm welcome to the final hour. This is Newsroom on SABC News on Channel 404. My name is Elvis Preston. I'll be with you until 12. First, let's take a look at all your news headlines. Student protests are keeping many campuses around the country closed despite last week's government announcement that there will be no hike in fees next year. Matric students currently underway with over 560,000 grade 12 learners writing English Paper 1. And vote tallying is underway in Tanzania hours after yesterday's general elections, although voting was delayed until today at some polling stations due to a shortage of voting materials. But first, let's find out from Kendall Makamate, what's coming up in the sports. Good morning.
Good morning, Elvis. Close enough. Makamate. People know who you're talking about. And a hearty good morning to you at home as well. This is what we've got in store for you for the sports. The Proteas put up an unassailable 438 runs to win their first ever ODI series in India. They crushed the host by a stunning 214 runs. And Australia to lock horns with New Zealand in the Rugby World Cup final this coming Saturday.
How much better has Lewis been this year?
And Lewis Hamilton wraps up his third championship title with a win in Austin. And it's derbies all round for the Telkom Knockout semi-final. Kaizer Chiefs against Orlando Pirates and Mamelodi Sundowns host Super Sport United. And that in a nutshell is what's happening in sports at 11:30, so stay close. Back to you, Elvis.
That's all coming up with Kendall a short while right now. Let's take a look at your top story. Vote tallying is underway in Tanzania hours after yesterday's general elections, although voting was delayed until today at some polling stations due to a shortage of voting materials. Voters in the East African nation are electing a president as well as parliamentary and local government representatives. Results from various polling centres have started trickling into the National Tally Centre, but it is too early to tell who among the two main candidates is in the lead. Early last night, the opposition party Chadema said that police had raided its tally centre in Dar es Salaam and arrested its representatives. Police did not respond to media queries on the arrest. In most polling centres, the opposition and the ruling party CCM have agents who are observing the ongoing vote counting process. The National Election Commission says the first presidential results will be announced mid-afternoon today and that the winner in the presidential elections will be known by Thursday. Now, for the latest there on the story, we now cross live to Morogoro in Tanzania, where our contributing editor, Vuyo Mvoko, is standing by. Very good morning to you, Vuyo. And can you tell us what is the latest there?
Well, thanks very much, Elvis, and welcome to Morogoro. You may see the image behind me. Many people will recognize it. It's the image of Solomon Mahlangu. We're standing right in front of the Solomon Mahlangu College, which is now the campus of the local university here. But we'll tell you about that a little later on. To go back to the results, yes, of course, overnight there were a few incidents, as the parties and the Electoral Commission have said, but they hope to iron out some of the remaining problems, including areas where there were shortages of ballot papers, which you mentioned. But of course, overall, the counting continues. And later today, at the earliest, we're expecting the first set of results. At the moment, nothing has really come through. However, the local media has, of course, been able, using party agents and sources of theirs, to sort of start getting a sense of where things are or where some of the strongholds, known strongholds, have gone. But at the moment, there is no absolutely clear picture of where things may go. Elvis?
So you say that the local media has got a sense, but what sort of sense are they getting?
Well, it's really people looking at regions and strongholds, which is nowhere near giving you a sense, like a sense of who's winning and who's losing at this stage. People would go to a particular locality, and because they know that it is Party A's stronghold, and then they would talk about that. Conversations would be about that. They would tweet or put stuff on Facebook on those particular issues. Remember, even in the run-up to the election itself, I mean, there were polls that were, all the polls, well, both polls that we sort of particularly looked at wouldn't give you the nuanced stuff. It was mostly the overall picture, which both polls as well as pundits said the election would go to the ruling party, Chama Pinduzi. But that is certainly not absolute. We don't know how the people voted, and that dilemma sort of continues because no one at this stage seems to be having any sense of really whether the final outcome will confirm those polls or whether, in fact, things have changed as the opposition has been claiming and continues to claim.
Now, there was also a report that early last night, the opposition party Chadema said that the police had raided its tally center in Dar es Salaam and they arrested the representatives. What came out of that one?
Well, the Electoral Commission hasn't said anything as we have said in what we sent through today. We are no wiser, no clearer about what exactly is going on there and whether, in fact, we haven't received even confirmation of that information at this stage. So we are no wiser.
Overall, Vuyo, there was some talk that there might be some post-violence elections, but at this point in time, it doesn't seem like it's very calm in the country.
Well, as some people would recall from the piece we sent last night, yes, there were problems, and everybody accepts that. In the one instance, for example, the place where we went to just about 12 or so kilometers from what is now the Result Center, which is the Julius Nyerere International Convention Center. There was a big problem there where the ballot papers for the local for the local poll, where there was a huge shortage of that. In other words, they seem not to have sent to that polling station the same number of ballot papers that they had sent for the legislative and the national election, resulting in a chaotic state of affairs. Police had to be brought in, but they soon calmed the situation down, and the local leaders actually exercised leadership, and I'm including here the officials of the National Electoral Commission, because in a very short space of time they got together. Something of a public meeting was held, and all the people who were there accepted that there was a problem, but they felt that the poll, the election and its credibility was more important than anyone trying to score little political points. And as a result, they managed the situation. They went ahead with voting, but postponing the local element of that voting, and everything went smoothly. And elsewhere, there were no major problems. We did have, speak to some of the observer missions, including we spoke to the head of the East Africa Community Observer Mission, who said, by and large, everything went well. Yes, there were problems here and there, but none of those problems were big enough to really give anyone an impression that things didn't go well, or things were rigged, or the Electoral Commission didn't do its work. So overall, I think it's the kind of poll that Tanzanians would be and should be proud of. It is a much, much better election, well managed or better managed than the polls we've seen in other countries in this same region, where we saw incidents of violence, people barricading streets with burning tires and bricks, hurling stones at the police. None of that happened here in Tanzania.
Vuyo, thank you so much for that update. That's our contributing editor, SABC's contributing editor, Vuyo Mvoko. He's in Tanzania. Now, here at home, lectures at the University of Pretoria are being disrupted, despite concessions made by the university management. Protesting students are preventing lectures from taking place as part of the ongoing Fees Must Fall campaign around the country. The University of Pretoria has announced in a letter that financially needy students will not have to pay registration fees when registering for 2016. In the letter, the university has agreed that if students continue to behave responsibly, no person who participated in the protest action will be disciplined. However, students in EFF and Sasco Regalia are walking class by class, removing students from the lecture halls. Vice-Chancellor Cheryl de la Rey says that they will apply to students who qualify for NSFAS funding, students who submit letters from sponsors, and financially needy students who make the necessary financial arrangements with the university. The university has also made an extra 20 million rand available to the students. Around the corner from us, the University of the Witwatersrand's Vice-Chancellor Adam Abib has expressed his disappointment after students decided to continue with their fees must fall protest. Students now want assurances regarding free tertiary education among a range of other demands. Now this comes after government last week granted their demand for next year's fee hikes to be scrapped. Habib says a special meeting of the Wits Senate will be held today to discuss the protest and the resumption of the academic program. Wits management are calling on student leaders to be open to negotiations and allow studies and exams to go ahead. Meanwhile, Wits University spokesperson Sharona Patel says that the outstanding student demands, such as outsourcing and lease agreements of residences, will also be addressed at a special meeting of the Senate today. Wits management will decide soon when the academic program will resume. Earlier on, Wits spokesperson Sharona Patel said, though they understand the demands of the students, the academic program must continue.
So some of the issues that the student leaders and the students are putting on the table have to do with transformation. Now, we have agreed that as the higher education sector, it has been really slow in transforming in the last 2 decades. This year, we've put in place 45 million rand for Black, African and coloured professors to attract new ones to Wits University, but also to look at the ones that are already in our system and to work with them to take them to full professoriate level. Secondly, we're looking at our language policy. We've got a new policy that has been approved by Senate and Council and which will be implemented. Thirdly, we are looking at the renaming of buildings, places and spaces. So we know that the students have renamed Senate House, Solomon Mashlango House. We're saying, look, there is a process for this. We've done an audit of all our 260 buildings, our places and spaces. Let us all go and make contributions to what these names should be. The university is very open to that approach in this regard. So what Senate will deliberate on this morning, 2 things. The one would be the ongoing student protest, and secondly, when the academic program will resume and when examinations will resume. Now, we've had calls from many students, the majority, I'd say, of students who want to come back, who want lectures to resume, and who want to write their examinations. And we are overwhelmed with emails and calls from parents and students in this regard. What we are proposing, we're strongly encouraging the current student leadership to say, let us negotiate all these other issues that we don't agree with. Let's have a separate negotiation process and let that happen while the academic program and the examinations continue. We can't afford to lose a whole year for all our students. We can't afford for the examinations not to take place. And so whatever Senate decides today is what the management of the university will have to implement.
560,000 grade 12 learners across the country are currently writing English Paper 1. They will be examined in English Home Language, English First Additional Language and English Second Additional Language. Over 800,000 part-time and full-time candidates have registered for this year's matric exams. Government says it has put measures in place to ensure that cheating, which marked last year's matric exams, does not happen again. Several thousand learners began with their practical exams last week. The last paper will be written on the 30th of November. The South African Depression and Anxiety Group has meanwhile urged the parents to create a conducive studying environment for their children during exam time. And that's your news for now. We'll take a break and Eben will be right back after that.
This is Rights and Recourse.
This act says we are all the same, we are all equal before the law.
I have a fundamental problem with her saying that traditional leaders are recognized as the de facto owners of the land. That isn't in the Constitution, nor is it in any law.
Unpacking your legal rights and cost of action.
The Constitution starts from the point that we are one country and that we need to have a system that actually consolidates that, but also recognizes the different compositions of different communities.
With due respect to Aninka, I know she is happy that her queen in England, she's the owner of the whole land, she's not having any politics.
Chief Mukwena, we will get to some of the other issues.
You must withdraw that Aninka's Queen of England. Please, that's completely unacceptable.
That's Rights and Recourse, Sundays at 2 p.m. on the SABC News channel.
Welcome back here with Newsroom. Time for us to shift our focus to seeing what's happening around the regions here in South Africa. Now, students at the University of the Free State have returned to 3 campuses this morning after last week's protests there. The hashtag Fees Must Fall campaign in the Free State saw a shutdown of the university as students clash with police and management. While the students welcomed the announcement of no fees increases, there are still other issues they want addressed. Now, our special correspondent, Richard Newton, joins us in our Bloemfontein studio to give us a regional roundup. Morning, Richard.
Good morning, Eben.
Richard, tell us what's the latest, but tell us also, is Professor Jansen, is he back from his overseas trip?
Yes, Professor Jansen is back in the country, and this is one of the activities today where students say they're going to get together a little later this morning. They're going to have a peaceful demonstration, but they are calling on Professor Jansen to come and address them on a number of issues they want to talk about and want to have a look at. Of course, the academic and the administration activities are back to normal this morning. This after it was agreed that the exams would be postponed by a week and would give everyone a chance this week to catch up where they needed to. But as we've seen from all over the country, the fact that there was an announcement that it was agreed that there would be a 0% increase in fees, that's not the end of it, not by a long shot. And in the Free State as well, the guys want Professor Jansen to come out and to talk to them about a host of issues they've got, including accommodation fees. That's also something that is high on the agenda of a lot of the students. They're saying it's great, study fees being looked at, but what about accommodation fees? That's also very expensive. And I think Professor Jansen, who has returned from the States where he was last week, will have to address this with the students. And as we've seen around the country, it's not all over. There's still a lot of insecurity perhaps amongst the students. Will this happen? When will the total taking away of fees come into force? Where will the money come from? I think there's a lot of unanswered questions and students not quite ready just to leave everything to see what happens in a year to come.
Yeah, interesting. That developments will go on around the country. But, of course, today matric exams started. Tell us about what's happening there by you.
Well, of course, we all focused on the university students last week. This week, everyone's looking at our matric students who have started this final stage of their schooling, very important stage of their schooling. In the Free State, there's about 330 exam centres where these kids will be writing, about 35,000 students that are sitting for these exams. Now, the department says everything's in place. We've looked at last year where there were incidences of cheating and papers that leaked and so on, and the department is saying that they're making sure that this won't happen and all the security that needs to be in place will be in place, and they want the kids to have the best possible situation to be able to write their exams and not have this hanging over their heads. So today, English, big focus on English, first language and second language, and as I say, all those students knuckling down, very important. This could determine their futures.
Now, Richard, on to the good news. The City of Roses is having the annual Rose Festival there in your neck of the woods. Should be beautiful, very colourful. Tell us what you guys are going to do.
Well, it certainly is very colourful. Of course, the terrible drought conditions that we've had and the very unusual high temperatures have had an impact, and there's a lot less roses that will be on show. But still, nevertheless, at the moment already around the city, over 1,000 displays at shopping centres and public spaces around the city. People loving it. It adds a bit of colour, a bit of brightness. And it's the 40th festival. You can understand why it's called the City of Roses, built up a real international reputation. People come from far away, and we have about 90 people writing in for, you know, Rose of the Year in various categories that they'll be entering in. As I say, a bit of a downer that the drought and the water restrictions and the high temperature having a slight effect, but still, if you're coming down to Bloem, you'll enjoy the colours and the scent of the beautiful roses that we have here.
Now, Richard, you've mentioned the drought there, and farming in the province have been quite heavily affected. What are the farmers saying right now? Are they waiting for the rain before they plant?
A lot of them are looking at the skies in absolute desperation. Every now and again we have a bit of a storm that comes up and the clouds get together and everyone thinks, yes, here it comes, this is it. And then it rains for like 3 minutes, you know, and then it's clear again. And the farmers are really going through a really tough time. They're having to look at ground moisture, which is nowhere near what they need to be able to plant. The other issue, of course, with these conditions are fires. The guys are seeing a lot of fires breaking out. It's taking a lot of resources, a lot of water, a lot of time, a lot of energy from the farmers to actually put the fires out. And it's a constant worry. And, of course, we talk about the Free State often being the breadbasket. There's a lot of crops and a lot of food security that is based here in the Free State. And unless we can see this rainfall actually coming and staying in a good 3, 4, 5 days of solid rain, I think the farmers are really, really down to their sort of desperate pleas to actually get some rain.
Do you have an idea what the weather outlook or the rain outlook is there for the next week or so? I spoke to Paul Manari here a little bit earlier in studio, and he told me that the next couple of days looking good for the interior of the country. Does that include Bloemfontein and surrounds?
We're looking at the possibility of some rain, but of course, you know, it sounds negative, but when people say there's a 30% chance of rain, what they're really saying is there's a 70% chance it won't rain. And that 30% is desperately needed, but it also needs to be sustained. We need to have rainfalls that sort of go for a day and a half, or at least a gentle rainfall over a longer period to soak in, and sort of flash rains of 10, 15 minutes or an hour here and there, while it does make a slight difference. It's just not enough. We need sustained rain, and hopefully these 30% will grow to 40, 50, 60, 70%, and we'll get the rain we need. You know, it's not just the farmers that will struggle if we don't get the rain. It affects all of us. It's going to become food prices going up. It's going to hit us all in our pockets, and so I think we all need to join them in whatever works for you. Let's pray for rain.
Richard, thank you very much for that update. That is specialist correspondent coming to you live from Bloemfontein, talking all things education, matrics, student protests, the rains, and of course they've got the beautiful Rose Festival there, the annual festival in the City of the Roses going on right now. Now, we move on. The 2015 final Grade 12 examinations officially started today with more than 560,000 Grade 12 learners sitting for the English Paper 1 at 9 o'clock this morning. Now, more than 800,000 part-time and full-time candidates have registered for this year's matric exams. Several thousand learners began with their practical exams last week. Learners have just finished writing their first paper. It finished about 20-odd minutes ago. Now, Griselda, as always, is out and about. She's stationed at the Wendywood High School, where she's talking to some of the learners right now to give us a little bit of an idea of how the first paper went. Morning, Chris. Are they happy?
Well, Evan, what I can tell you is that when I walked into the school this morning, there are quite a number of nervous young people, a bit worried about how the first paper will go. But judging by the reaction that I saw just a few minutes ago after writing that English paper, everybody seems very excited. They clearly aced it, as young people would say. Let's chat to some of them right now. Guys, so how did we do? Did we rock this?
I don't know. I feel like I did my part. Let me just say that I did my part.
Okay, you were very excited a bit earlier on. Okay, so did you prepare well? Do you feel that you prepared quite adequately for today's paper?
Yeah, I feel like I did, but you know, like you can't really fully prepare for the first paper, you know. Yes. But you can do your part, so I feel like I did my part.
Oh, fantastic. And how was it for you?
It was good for me because I study for English Paper 1. I actually study for English Paper 1, so it was good.
It was good?
Yeah.
Okay, so from here, moving on to prepare, I guess, for the next paper. You're writing accounting tomorrow, is that correct? Yes. Okay, and you're looking forward to that?
Yeah, I am looking forward to it. Accounting is quite difficult, and I've been studying for quite a while now, so it's, well, I can't wait to write and finish.
And you?
Tomorrow I'm on a break until Friday, so yeah, I've got time to study.
Okay, great. I'm glad to hear that you have time to study. That's not really a break, is it, eh? Let's chat to somebody we've been tracking the whole morning. We woke up at about 4 o'clock this morning, and when you were getting ready and coming to write your paper, you were a bit nervous, but also excited that finally you're getting this opportunity. How was your paper this morning?
I just feel like now there's a little burden off my shoulders, so I can take it from here now.
Okay. Also up next is accounting, I guess?
Nah, I don't do accounting, unfortunately.
Okay, all right. So you got a couple of days off to study for the next paper, is that correct?
Which is Afrikaans Paper 1 on Wednesday.
Afrikaans.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. So I guess everybody feels like they did okay here, is it? Yes. We kind of did okay, right? Okay, yeah, but it seems like they did okay. They're really hoping for the best moving forward. There's those really difficult ones that come up, your accounting, your maths and your science, the ones that really get young people cringing. But many of the kids here at Wendy would say, well, they're putting in a lot of time into the studying, and they're hoping that they'll get the results at the end of the day. So we certainly do wish them luck as well.
Chris, before I let you go, you know, this year there's a lot of focus and a lot of talk around cheating, and the department have put in measures to deal with cheating and so forth. At the Wendywood High, it looks very organised and things look very much together there. That's, I suppose, what they would like to see around the country. But have you seen any measures to make the exams more secure in any way?
Oh, well, 100%. What we saw this morning was when the learners came into the gate, the grade 12 learners, they were told to keep their bags in something that looks like a bit of a storeroom that they lock up once they've left, and they're searched. They made, the invigilators here made sure that they searched the learners. They went into the examination room about an hour before the paper got underway. So very orderly, I must say, and certainly that's what the department, the National Department of Education, whom we interviewed a bit earlier, was saying that with the what we're seeing here, everything's going according to as it's expected to. They're hoping that will be the case throughout the country, but we haven't heard any incidents thus far. We've been checking with the National Department of Education, and certainly they're saying it's really going according to plan. So teachers have also put many measures in place here to ensure that this year's exam is not marred by the scandal that we saw last year of massive cheating.
Criselda, thank you very much for that update. Criselda Lewis coming to you live from the Wendywood High School, where matric exams got underway. Today, of course, it is matric 2015. It is the National Senior Certificate exam happening right here in South Africa. Of course, we'll keep you posted throughout the rest of the day and the rest of the month how things go. It's very important, of course, the numbers at the end of this all. That will only come out in the new year, to be honest. Time for us now to take a break. Kendall Mahamati will be coming back with a nice interview, different type of interview in the sports news right after this.
Get all the latest news from the SABC's online news services on our website. Breaking news and in-depth coverage of everything from business, sports to politics and lifestyle. Catch the top news clips and watch live streaming of major news events on the SABC News YouTube channel whenever. Stay connected on the SABC News Facebook page and have your say on news that matters to you. And for the latest headlines and live updates from our reporters, follow us on Twitter. SABC Digital News, anytime, anywhere.
Welcome to Network, a technology news program that also discusses what's trending in social media in and around Africa. MTN has launched its new movie and television streaming service, Front Row. If it's trending, we will find it. That's Network with me, Spumela Lezondi, every Sunday at 7:30 p.m. only on the SABC News Channel.
All right, good morning and welcome back. I'm Kendall Makamate, and I've got your sports on Newsroom. Now, today, the 26th of October, marks the deadline for candidates to throw their hats into the ring for the presidency of FIFA. Most recently, South Africa's very own Tokyo Sexwale put up his bid to be the president of FIFA. The elections will be on the 26th of February next year, and with me to talk about this is sports management doctoral candidate from the University of Johannesburg, Mr. Chris Fortain. Good morning and welcome to Newsroom.
Thank you, Kendall.
One of the reasons we brought you through here is because you actually have quite intimate knowledge of FIFA and the workings of FIFA. You're also one of the FIFA pros. You're a member of FIFA Pro, are you not?
Yes, I do.
This is the International Union of Football Players across the world.
That's it, yeah.
All right. Now, with that said, now that we've established your credentials, let's talk about Tokyo Sexwale. Tokyo Sexwale is our very own person who's come through from this country. He's also worked very closely with football governing bodies within the country as well as with FIFA. And now he's in the mix. What do you make of his candidacy?
I think it's a good choice. You know, he comes from a background of the struggle, first of all. He's an African candidate. There's not been an African candidate within the ruling parties of FIFA itself. And you know that most of the FIFA presidents in the past, either from South America or Europe. So the strong football playing country, shall we say, or shall we say where the money is, that's where the candidates or the presidencies come from. It will be good to have somebody from the outside. He's a businessman. He knows the sport. You know, he also runs the World Summit in terms of racism in sport, the World Summit. So, in my opinion, he's a good candidate. He's totally from outside looking in, although he has been involved with some of the projects of FIFA. It will be good to see the other candidates, how he stands up against them that have been involved in the game for a very long time.
And one of them that we could be talking about right now is a gentleman by the name of Jerome Champagne.
That's right.
Jerome Champagne stood the last time that we had elections, FIFA elections, but then he backed down, I think it was the second round, even before they got to the elective Congress itself. What do you make of his second time around? Should he be throwing his hat into the ring again? Who is he?
Jerome Champagne has been the executive director for and an advisor strongly to Blatter all the time. He has been around in the FIFA circles. He's a strong politician. He has been the foreign minister of France in the UN. So he's got a global picture of what's happening. He's been involved in the whole Winning Africa with Africa. We actually worked with him on that project in Africa. So he knows what's happening in Africa. He's advised the Middle East on their organization and structures, as well as India and Oceania. So he's also from a very strong football background, but also a very strong diplomat in terms of what decisions to be made, how to put structures together. So he's also a very strong candidate.
All right. Now, with that said, we also have a few other candidates that people have heard of. One of them being president of the Asian Football Confederation, Sheikh Salman of Bahrain, as well as we have Michel Platini, and we also have Bin Al Hussein from Jordan. Now, of those three, the one who sticks out most is Michel Platini. People know him as the head of UEFA. He's been suspended for 90 days, and we're waiting to see if his suspension gets lifted by the Ethics Committee today. Now, Michel Platini would have been a shoo-in had it not been for the suspension. What's going on there?
Well, the Ethics Committee on Friday announced that he cannot stand for president because of his suspension. And it will be good to see what the decision is. The Ethics Committee on Friday announced that Platini won't be able to stand because the 90-day suspension falls within the ambit of the candidates that has to be pronounced today. So it will be good to see. They did say that they will leave it if he does stand, and because he has appealed now, not only as an appeal to the Ethics Committee, but he's also said that he'll take, because he feels that he's not guilty, but that he'll take a step further to the Court for Arbitration in Sport. So it's going to be equally, it's going to be that FIFA will go against its own policies of having legal proceedings within the structures.
Which is part of the big problem facing FIFA these days, isn't it? That they seem to be judge, to be a lawyer, to be victim, all in one, all of the time. Yeah. For example, FIFA has said that all of these candidates need to pass some stringent ethics tests. Do any of these candidates pass any of these?
Well, look, we can say that Tokyo passes the test because he's a revolutionary, he was an activist, he knows the political scene. He's been used by FIFA also presently in terms of breaching the gap between Israel football and Palestine and all the problems that they've experienced there. So he knows about the climate and the politics and the structure and the strength and the power of FIFA. I think one of the biggest issues is about the transparency. And one of them is going to be a very strong characteristic for all of these candidates, is what their transparency is, what their honesty is, what the background is. And now we can see that after all this exposure, and hopefully today they're going to release another list of other people that are involved in many, many other scandals. So the call from FIFPro, which is the governing body that looks after the well-being of all the professional players, it's going to be good to see that whether they can measure up to these stringent criteria that has been laid down by FIFPro. FIFPro, on the other hand, are saying FIFA is the custodian of the game, but one of the biggest elements of the game is the players. And they always say, and the call was all the time was that the football needs to be governed by people that have been involved in football, players. And we thought that here comes one of the best players in the world, Platini, as a good administrator, a beacon of light for the players. And now we find all these other issues.
Beckenbauer as well is also implicated in some
same thing.
shady dealings.
Beckenbauer on the same issue on what happened in 2006 and a slush fund that was created. And they admitted it now. So how do we look at the players also now? So do we say that a player is capable of running the presidency of the biggest sport in the world? Mm-hmm. It has more power than governments. I mean, FIFA dictates to government. If you can remember what happened to us in 2010, when Blatter said to our president, Thabo Mbeki, it's not South Africa's World Cup, it's FIFA's World Cup. So we can take it away from you anytime. So they dictating to governments, and governments had to release or relinquish some of our laws. We know that certain laws had to be put in place for the 2010 World Cup.
Yeah.
If you look at the bank balance of FIFA, it's more than 5 African countries' gross domestic product put together. So you can see the power of this, and it's about money.
Yeah.
And if you look at the money and you look at the amounts that these people are banding about, it's unreal.
All right. Now, we've pretty much run out of time. But, Chris, I do believe there's a lot more that we can talk about. There's a lot more to unpack in terms of where to now for FIFA with regards to these automatic suspensions that Valker has gotten. Blatter himself, the top echelons of FIFA are actually been banned from their own organization. There's a lot to unpack. And I think we'd like to invite you for another visit very soon.
No problem. Thanks, Kendall.
Ladies and gentlemen, Chris Fortain, he's a sports management expert from the University of Johannesburg, talking to us about FIFA and the presidential candidacy. And that's where we leave it with that. Now, our very next story in sports is that Australia have admitted that it would take something special to beat New Zealand in next weekend's Rugby World Cup final at Twickenham. The Wallabies defeated Argentina 29-15 in their semi-final in London yesterday, while the Kiwis went through following a nail-biting win over South Africa.
The Wallabies were always the favourites to beat the Pumas at Twickenham, but the Argentinians made life difficult for the world's second-best side. Eighth man David Pocock was superb, while winger Adam Ashley Cooper scored a hat-trick in an immensely physical battle. Although they left the field bloodied and bruised, the Aussies were proud of their achievement after coming through the so-called pool of death.
Guys are playing for each other and they want to play for Australia, and they're committed when they run on the field. Hasn't always been perfect, but the commitment's there, and that's the basic.
But now the world's best team awaits them in the final, and Checker knows that nothing less than an extraordinary performance will be good enough.
We've only beaten them once, I think, out of the last 10 rounds, something like that. So I think they'd be feeling pretty good. They've got our measure, and it's going to be up to us to do something special, do something extra to just be competitive.
Despite sharing a rich Bledisloe Cup history, the two sides have never met in a Rugby World Cup final. New Zealand will be desperate to successfully defend their crown, while the Aussies will also aim to become the first team in history to win rugby's most prestigious title 3 times. Liesel Zankel, SABC News.
Right, in other sports news that's hitting the airwaves, South Africa have won the ODI series against India after winning the final match in Mumbai. Centuries from A.B. de Villiers, Faf du Plessis and Quinton de Kock helped the Proteas post an imposing 438 for 4. And the Indians were bowled out for just 224 in just 36 overs, giving the Proteas a massive 214-run win.
The Indian run chase got off to a good start, having to bat at more than 8 runs per over. Rohit Sharma and Virat Kohli went for 7 and 16 respectively. Ajinkya Rahane, not known as a big hitter, batted brilliantly, and while he was in the middle, India had a slim chance of an unlikely victory. But after Rahane was dismissed by Dale Steyn, the Indian captain MS Dhoni was fighting a losing battle. With 6 wickets down and not much in the way of batting to come, it was all over bar the shouting. Not even the presence of the little master Sachin Tendulkar in the crowd could save the Indian team from embarrassment. Harbhajan Singh went for a duck and Bhuvneshwar Kumar for a single, but the writing was on the wall when Imran Tahir bowled Dhoni for 27, with India still needing 220 runs. Kagiso Rabada was the best of the South African bowlers, taking 4 wickets for 41 runs. Hannes Reineke, SABC News.
Now, of course, a whole bunch of things that people have had to say about the Springboks, but about the Proteas, some special things being said. Nishit Jain says, India versus South Africa. Ajinkya Rahane stands out to be the star of the Indian team. He proved his worth to the team and to all those who doubted him. Yes, he's been through a bit of a tough patch, but he proved his worth in this last one. Aish Hamar, congrats AB de Villiers for first series win against India in India. And AB de Villiers is probably the most popular batsman in India outside of Sachin Tendulkar right now. Sham Parikh, if cricket is a religion, then AB de Villiers is science. Paytam, India versus SA, first ODI series. Like I said, the man is very popular out in India. Shreya Suravarjula. There we go. Suravarjula says, what makes AB de Villiers invincible at present? This question pops in my head every time I watch him play. But India versus SA was all about sixes. Fantastic stuff. Quinton de Kock weighing in as well, doing extremely well and making sure that the Proteas get to the top and winning that series 3-2. Shreya, Suravarjula again. There we go. But it was all about sixes. We've seen this one, we've read it, and we're very grateful that you've all put through your tweets about the Proteas. And we know that Quinton de Kock and the rest of the batting lineup put it together. Now, that's where we're going to leave it with the sport. Up next, of course, Cecil Munari with the weather.
Hi there, welcome from the weather desk. Yes, the rain is indeed on the way. Have a look at this. We're expecting up to 60% chance. There's a big chance of rain towards the eastern side of southern Africa, towards KwaZulu-Natal, the Eastern Cape Province, Gauteng, definitely over the northwest province, all over some parts of Mpumalanga. But then you need to look out for severe thunderstorms. It's still just a watch at the moment. It's not a warning just yet. And also we're expecting rain towards the eastern side of Madagascar. Clear skies are expected for the west, though, so dry conditions for the northern Cape, the western Cape, and up in towards Namibia, moving all the way towards the central part of southern Africa. Then tomorrow, there's a small change. We're expecting the rain to move in closer now towards the northwest province. I suspect it will be moving towards the northern parts over the next couple of days, and we're seeing some isolated showers for Botswana, some parts of Mozambique, definitely for Swaziland as well, and over Lesotho. You should expect some showers for today as well as over tomorrow. Temperature-wise, quite a hot day for most parts of South Africa. Starting by looking at Mafikeng, temperatures at 35 degrees. Vryburg is at 36. If you're going to be in the capital, 33 is what you should expect, closer to Hatfield as well as over the interior of Pretoria. Hot weather will be coming through. 33 for Welkom over the central parts of the country, but then slightly cooler conditions for much of the Eastern Cape Province. It gets hotter as you move towards Vrindal. Have a look at that. 38 degrees is your maximum temperatures. Most parts of the US are expected to be quite hot. Upington even at 40 degrees. And moving into the northern parts of South Africa, it is expected to get even hotter. But now have a look at this. The southern parts of Namibia are quite hot. Mariental and Keetmanshoop, both of them at 39 degrees. Oshakati also reaches those upper 30s at 39. Tsumeb, Potchefstroom, as well as Grootfontein, those are into the mid-30s, maybe even going as high as 37 degrees. And then there's a bit of mixture over Botswana. Much of the eastern side are expecting rain. Temperatures are still quite high, so also do expect some humidity there. Hukunti is at 36, going to be quite sunny for the west. And if you move into Zimbabwe, similar conditions what you saw in South Africa, you can expect here. Gweru and Harare at 32 degrees. That's basically what we're experiencing here in Johannesburg. Hot weather returning towards 30 again. Temperatures steadily picking up. But then it gets cooler for places such as Lichinga, 28, and even over the southern parts and the central regions of Mozambique, it will get a lot cooler, 26 for Vilanculo, rainy weather towards Maputo, partly cloudy skies are expected. The maximum temperatures at most will be just around 29 degrees, 27 to 29, so it is getting quite warm. It is at 29 as well. A little bit of thunder showers are expected for the eastern side of Madagascar. Traveling further towards the northern parts, expect similar conditions. In fact, there's also possibilities of rain towards Mahajanga, just over the northwestern side. It's usually dry and sunny along those parts, but for today and for tomorrow, you should expect a bit of rain. The Comoros, beautiful islands here, temperatures haven't changed much, 31 for major cities along those parts. Mamadzou at 31 degrees. And yeah, it stays the same, literally the same for days and days and days, and there's not much change towards Praslin at 30 degrees. You can see similar conditions for St. Denis. I can guarantee you by next week again, temperatures will be into those lower 30s. And that's why I leave it for the weather, but do stay tuned here on SABC News. There'll be more weather updates later.
The rain is coming, says Simonati. That's the good news here in South Africa. Southern Africa really has been very hot. But before we go, Anini's just going to give us a quick update as to what's happening on campuses around the country. It seems as if tensions are simmering once again.
Yes, Evan, we know as some campuses, classes are not happening until Friday. The University of Pretoria, that's where we're seeing a little bit of protest action. That there is by the UP Rising movement, and they're currently occupying the Client Centre Services Centre. At least this is a video over there, that's singing going on there. It's also been tweeted that classes have been suspended at 6, but I don't know if the entire campus has been affected. But that's
obviously,
definitely
it's interesting that there would be protests at the University of Pretoria. The university made a very nice announcement for students today.
That announcement really is a clincher, basically, because there's no registration fees for next year. And that seems to be the trend going on, and there's still discussions happening. But that's disturbing that they are still protesting. But they say they have a number of other demands that they want.
Number of other grievances.
Yes,
what are some of those grievances they're talking about? And are you aware of that?
Lease agreements, that's definitely at WITS. That's a concern from the SRC.
There's also concern about outsourcing of services at the university.
Outsourcing of services,
and that hasn't been addressed yet. And so there's quite a lot of things that I think the students feel have not been addressed. And the 0% fee hike for next year is just a diversion.
Not enough, they say.
And not enough.
The tip of the iceberg, they say. I think somehow I get a sense that we've developed an appetite for protest, and we might be seeing quite a bit of it going forward. Guys, that's where we wrap it. Anything else to add on this lovely Monday morning?
Not at all. We'll be back tomorrow, but we'll keep you posted and keep you abreast with all the developments. Wits, we're waiting for the senators meeting today, so we'll keep you updated on that. And of course, exams have started for the kids. We'll keep you updated on all the stories as they, and of course, Zambian elections, Tanzanian elections.
There we go. On this very channel. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Ciao for now.
See you tomorrow.
SABC brings to you Rugby World Cup 2015.